Welcome everyone to another compilation video of my past IDW Sonic comic reviews. Today's outing will consist of Free Comic Book Day 2022, the 2022 Annual, the Scrapnik Island miniseries, and the 5-part Urban Warfare arc. So sit back and relax, or play this in the background while doing something else, and enjoy revisiting these reviews. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Free Comic Book Day 2022. For those unaware or need a reminder, Free Comic Book Day is when on the first Saturday in May, the industry has comic shops give away free comic titles in the hopes of gaining new customers. A lot of these free comics would contain original stories, reprints of past stories, or recaps of what's happening in a series thus far. Today's comic is half of column A and half of column C. It is also the second Free Comic Book Day issue for IDW Sonic. The first, released last year in August due to COVID, had a story set in the classic era as part of Sonic's 30th anniversary. This year's story will be the first entry that's canon to the main IDW Sonic continuity. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and spoilers from this point forward. Sonic and Tails heads towards Angel Island, and after landing the tornado, Knuckles glides towards the two. It turns out he, reluctantly, invited them here. He's still upset that Sonic and his friends brought the metal virus, among other things, to his island recently. Tails reminded Knuckles that everything eventually worked out in the end, and this calms down the Echidna enough to explain why he called them here. There's been some strange rumblings in Marble Garden, and he could use some help on this one. The problem is, based on their current location, it's on the other side of the island. That means either a long trip through Red Mountain and Ice Cap, or they can either fly there with the tornado, or take a shortcut through Hydro City. Though Tails pronounces the place Hydrocity. Yeah, they went there. Thankfully, Knuckles provides his own shortcut via this underground passage. Sonic and Tails comment on how it's amazing Knuckles knows all the secrets of the island to get around quickly. Knuckles then reveals he just discovered this pathway while looking for metal virus remnants. According to him, there are still areas of the island he hasn't explored yet, and he's not happy about it. For now, the trio arrive at Marble Garden. Sonic remembers the last time they were here, how Eggman's drilling caused the place to become unstable. And wouldn't you know it, cue Eggman arriving in his drilling machine, which appears to be a larger, drivable version of the Tunnelbot mini-boss from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. He was having a good time drilling for raw materials, but decides to now get his kicks by attacking our heroes. He pulls out some old tricks like causing rocks to fall from above, to just collapsing the ground underneath them. And just like in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, if it wasn't for Tails, Sonic might have been done for. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles each attack the machine. The Fox even gets the finishing blow. Before flying off, Eggman claims he's achieved some sort of victory thanks to wrecking Marble Garden. Again. With the problem solved, Tails invites Knuckles to check out the new Restoration HQ, but Knuckles declines. He would rather explore Angel Island to find more secrets that he missed. The three then part on good terms, ending our story. The rest of the issue is a recap of the series so far, with an interesting twist. It's presented as a briefing by Dr. Starline to his creations Surge the Tenric and Kit the Fennec. Starline would summarize what's been going on, with Surge and Kit providing the occasional commentary. I wouldn't read how much of this is canon, because when Surge and Kit question their role as pawns, Starline reboots them in this reused panel. He then finishes monologuing about the events of the Imposter Syndrome miniseries, including taking over Egg Base Alpha, and stating that the two are ready to take on Eggman and Sonic. It assumes that Starline's in full control of the situation. However, in the actual canon, after taking over Egg Base Alpha, things took an unexpected turn. I won't reveal it here. you can check out Imposter Syndrome 3 for details. The point of this recap is to get readers, both old and new, ready for the series' 50th issue, which is just around the corner. As for the original story, it's very simple compared to the main series, but that's the point. Again, the idea is to lure in potential new readers, especially since some of them might have seen the new Sonic movie recently and want to read an adventure featuring these exact 4 characters. Though the timing of this release could be a coincidence, or it could be intentional. What I'm saying is, it would be a bad idea to plop these new readers in during a major storyline that's currently happening in the series. Though there are brief references to past events, breadcrumbs new readers can follow if they want to check out the rest of the series. As for this story's placement in the overall timeline, based on the dialogue about the metal virus and Restoration HQ, I would put it somewhere between issue 40, which is the end of the arc where the new Restoration HQ was introduced, and before issue 49 at the latest. The story's premise can be summed up as, what if Marble Garden Zone was given the Sonic Mania treatment in comic form? Think about it, 3 playable characters revisiting an old zone, and end up fighting an Eggman boss. Said boss was probably inspired by Sonic Mania's version of Hydro City / Hydrocity, where the Eggman boss was a modified version of the original mini-boss. This has to be what Ian was going for here. Some other observations include the banter between the characters. The art helps punctuate this. Sonic as always being the fun-loving guy, Knuckles being all serious business, and Tails being the voice of reason between the two. But ultimately, Knuckles continues to show that deep down, he does still care about Sonic and Tails when it matters. And then there's the Sonic and Tails debate on how to pronounce the second level of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, something fans continue to talk about to this very day. Eggman continues something that was established in issue 32. If he's defeated, he'll try and turn this into some sort of victory. In this case, wrecking Marble Garden. Well, whatever makes him sleep at night. One more thing to note is Knuckles finding out that he doesn't know everything about Angel Island. So for the time being, he will explore every nook and cranny of the place. It might be something the main comic could explore in the future. What do I think about this short story? I enjoyed it a lot. Perhaps because it honors Sonic 3 and Knuckles, my favorite 2D Sonic game of all time. And now it's 100% confirmed that those events happened in the main IDW continuity. Thank you! Sorry for the personal bias, I just really love that game. If you have not had a chance to pick up this issue, it might get digitally released online in the near future, and or be eventually placed in a future trade paperback. However you acquire this, it is a good read. Sometimes it's nice to have a breather before things get intense. I'm looking at you, issue 50. And with that, thank you for watching, and have a good day everyone. In case you're wondering, Team Hydro City for life. Greetings everyone, and welcome to the IDW Sonic 2022 Annual. For those who don't know, IDW Sonic Annuals are big specials containing a number of stories focusing on world building that the main comic doesn't have time or room for. It's also a way to showcase new writing and or artistic talent to the series, alongside some of the established veterans. Usually the annuals are centered around a theme. The first one, back in 2019, didn't really have one unless you count world building in general. 2020's annual focused on untold tales of the metal virus. Yeah, it and that saga in general was awkward that year. And last year, to celebrate Sonic's 30th anniversary, a special was released set in the world of classic Sonic. I still consider it the 2021 annual, since to me, it meets the criteria of one. Multiple stories, world building, introducing new talent, and centering around a theme. The theme for this year's annual, Unlikely Pairs. That's right, we are having characters who don't normally hang out with each other. Before we begin, I'll be placing a spoiler warning for not only this special, but for every issue and special up to and through issue 51. Alright, let's get started. We begin our first story on Blaze's world, where our favorite Firecat princess boards a pirate ship and quickly decimates the crew. She interrogates the head of a robot pirate about the whereabouts of their leader. The pirate said that she just destroyed their remnants. The leadership, including Captain Whisker, Johnny, and even Min and Mum, are gone. Blaze just couldn't believe she took out all of Captain Whisker's forces. Later on the Ocean Tornado, Marine says now that the seas are free of robot pirates, Blaze should take some time off and get some R&R. Blaze, though, still has a duty to her empire, the Soul Emeralds, and the Jeweled Scepter. She does not want to abandon it, even if it's for a little while. Marine wonders who can convince Blaze to take a little break if she can't. We then cut to Blaze using the power of the Soul Emeralds to transport to Sonic's world, specifically Angel Island. She wants to ask Knuckles, a fellow Guardian, should you honor your duty as one, and is it okay to just step away for a little while? She provides him with some additional context like how her ministers run the bulk of the administration. She just has to look at the paperwork. That doesn't mean she's negligent. She uses her free time to hunt down robot pirates, but now they're all gone. As far as Blaze is concerned, her world, for the moment, is at peace. The topic switches over to the Soul Emeralds. Unless Blaze is using them, they're usually kept in a secure case under heavy guard. Knuckles wonders if they can be moved to a more secure location, with Blaze adding she could increase the guards. With those factors in mind, Knuckles shares his opinion. Take a vacation. He mentions that whenever he leaves the island for the greater good, it's always a risky gamble. I mean, the last time this happened, the main villain of Sonic Heroes temporarily took over the place. But Blaze's situation is different. With no villains to fight in her world at the moment, and the ability to take precautions, she should take advantage of this opportunity. Blaze admits it was nice seeing everyone again during her last visit, even if it involved fighting badniks. After thanking Knuckles, she heads back to her world to make the necessary preparations. In the Shrine of the Jeweled Scepter, Blaze's attendant, Gardon, reports that ships will patrol the island at all times, and the guards will be tripled. No one but Blaze and Marine will be allowed access to the chamber. Speaking of, the two say their goodbyes. While Blaze invited her to come along, Marine declines. Somebody has to stay behind in case trouble happens, and she can always call Blaze back with the power of the scepter. And so Blaze teleports herself to Cream's house, where she, Amy, Sonic, and Vanilla are currently having a tea party. Pairing up Blaze and Knuckles was genius. I don't recall the two of them hanging out within a mainline game. Sure, there was the racing games and the Olympic games, but mainline games? Well, there was their first meeting in Sonic Rush, which involved some conflict over the Soul Emeralds, but they seem to have buried the hatchet after Cream taught Blaze the value of friendship. Then there's the DS version of Sonic Colors since both appeared in that game, though I don't know if that really counts. And finally, there's Sonic Generations. I guess Sonic's party would be a good place to converse about guardianship. To bring this back to the IDW continuity, where most of the game events took place, the last time these two hung out in any capacity was when Blaze joined the others in liberating Angel Island from Neo Metal Sonic. Even if Blaze never knew of Knuckles' guardian role beforehand, she would have definitely found out during the events of that arc. She would also see Knuckles in a new light afterwards, a kindred spirit bound by duty to guard his land and a magic gem. No wonder she went to him about taking a vacation when things were looking good in her world. So yeah, it seems all of Captain Whisker's forces are gone at this point. Presumably Whisker, Min, and Mum went bye-bye as portrayed in Sonic Rush Adventure. Johnny ran off at the end of that game, but apparently Blaze tracked him down and destroyed him. I assume since the robot pirate says he's gone along with Whisker, Min, and Mum. Then again, the robot head could be telling a convincing lie to Blaze, and there are robot forces waiting in the wings, planning to attack her empire when they're ready. Blaze has nothing to worry about right now. She apparently has the Soul Emeralds on her person, and she has her guards looking after the Jeweled Scepter, along with Marine, who makes her IDW Sonic debut here. She's not as annoying compared to her game or Archie counterparts. She was the one that originally told Blaze to take a break and seek a second opinion on the matter. She even volunteered to help keep an eye on things while Blaze is away. I wonder if Ian Flynn toned her down on purpose. In the past, he's made it no secret that he disliked the character. To wrap this up, the story shows that it's okay to relax from your lifelong job for a bit, provided you plan ahead of time. I think it's a lesson many of us should follow. And I have to say, the art from Adam Bryce Thomas and newcomer Joanne LaFuente seriously made Blaze even more awesome by just having her walking on lava. She probably bathes in the stuff back home. And one more quick note, based on Amy's dialogue here, this story appears to be set sometime after the events of Trial by Fire. Speaking of referencing things from past issues, remember near the end of issue 36 where after Tails and Bell fix E123 Omega, Tails suggests that he and Gemerald have a little sparring session to test things out? This story picks up from that point. The two begin sparring, and while Gemerald has the speed advantage for the moment, Omega shrugs off his attacks and strikes back. He comments that under Eggman, Gemerald fought Sonic to a standstill, and now he's considered pathetic. He thinks it's due to caring for Cream, so he makes the following offer. Join him in his crusade to destroy all of Eggman's robots, become strong again, and ditch the puny rabbit family. Omega just made a big mistake with those words. As Gemerald strikes back, he says what he did in the past doesn't matter. His main objective now is to watch over Cream and Vanilla. The two then charge for a head-on collision. That evening, they return to Tails' workshop a little worse for wear. On the bright side, the two have gained a better appreciation of each other while beating each other up, so there's that. We have the debut of writer Daniel Barnes to the franchise. His previous works include The Black Mage and Agretsuko, and according to his website, his inspirations include anime, 90s video games, and Saturday morning cartoons. In other words, he's a perfect fit for Sonic. I've also read somewhere, possibly on Twitter, that Ian Flynn was another source of inspiration. We will see more of Daniel's work in the upcoming Scrapnik Island miniseries coming this October. And wouldn't you know it, it will also feature some old Eggman robots. Which brings us back to this story. It highlights the different paths two former Eggman robots went. Omega turned on Eggman because his potential was wasted guarding Shadow's stasis chamber, and vows to destroy all of the Doctor's creations to prove himself superior. Gemerald, though, first turned on Eggman thanks to all the battle damage he sustained fighting Sonic, and ultimately became the final boss of Sonic Advance 3. Afterwards, Tails reprogrammed him to be the kind-hearted support robot to the Rabbit family. It helps that Emerald's data was used in his construction. The differences between the two don't stop there. Besides the obvious size difference, Omega is committed to his goal of proving himself superior, and as such, sees all as weak, including Gemerald. At first. Even before they go all out, he does show some respect for him thanks to his actions in the past, thus the offer to join him in his crusade, and shedding the weakness that is the Rabbit family. Gemerald doesn't see protecting the Rabbit family as weak. In fact, hurting them in any way will unleash his wrath. See Exhibit A. Gemerald also sees himself as evolving, even though he was reprogrammed by Tails, while Omega remains static. Basically, one fights to be the best, the other out of love. But ultimately in combat, they're evenly matched, as this panel demonstrates. Daniel does a good job of making something a little deeper out of a story that's pretty much an excuse to show these two robots beating the crap out of each other. And what better way to gain respect from your opponents than engage in some good-natured brawling. And the art is not afraid to show the aftermath. That's the thing with damaging robots in general. You can get away with injuries and maiming that would be horrific if it was done to an organic being. Look at it this way, Tails. At least repairs won't be as extensive like last time. It's funny that the previous two stories had a connection to Cream the Rabbit in some way, because now she's the star in our next story. Vanilla drops Cream off at Hero Camp, with the latter hoping to learn what it means to be a real hero. She won't be alone because also attending the camp is the Sonic Fan Club. Hero Camp doesn't look that well put together. The reason is, the camp is actually a plot by Orba and Cubot in an attempt to get any information about the restoration from the kids. Disguising themselves as camp counselors Orville and Qbert, they welcome the children and says their knowledge of heroism will be tested during their stay. The first activity, not fun, oh I get it, has the children tied up under the impression that the hero has to find a way out of tight spots. Cream easily does that thanks to a sharp piece of wood. She's heard how Sonic can cut through rope with his spines. The next activity is building a replica of the restoration. Orba and Cubot ask Cream if the structure is accurate to the real thing. She says it's missing a few key areas, namely the mall, the play area, and the chili dog stand. So this endeavor's a bust. That night, the robots try to get the kids to talk about some scary new badnik in the form of a ghost story. The kids would rather make s'mores instead. Orba and Cubot doesn't know what they are, and this causes Cream to call the two out as fake counselors. She leads the kids in the attack against them. The next morning, the kids prepare to leave the camp. Vanilla asks if they had a good time learning to be heroes. What Cream and the fan club learned is, they might already be real heroes, and we end with Orba and Cubot tied up with a s'more as a parting gift. We're introduced to Irish writer India Swift, who is also an artist and animator. In fact, she worked with Sega Hardlight, Sega of Europe's mobile development studio, the ones responsible for the likes of Sonic Dash and Sonic Forces Battle. I would not be surprised if she had a hand in those games. Despite being an artist, she did not do the art here. That was left in the hands of Abby Ballmer and Heather Breckel, both of whom worked on previous IDW Sonic material. Speaking of previous material, we have the return of the Sonic Fan Club, last seen in full in the 2020 annual, though most of them were Zombots. Glad they got better. We did see the president at the Spiral Hill Glad to Be Alive party in issue 31. Cream was there too, and she could have gotten acquainted with the club members before Eggman crashed the party. So is it going to be a tradition that annuals set in modern Sonic's world would feature these guys? I don't mind it if that's the case. A nice touch, probably because Abby worked on the last story featuring these characters, is the continued rivalry between the president and the vice president in the background. As for the plot, it is silly. Orba and Cubot trying to get intel about the restoration from a bunch of kids under the guise of a summer camp. While kids can be clever, we definitely saw it when Cream figured out the ruse, I don't think they'd be privy to highly classified stuff. Cream would have been the closest one to get any intel out of, since she often visits the place, according to her. Okay, the Sonic Fan Club could have visited the place as well. I understand the fan club wanting to learn to be heroes, but Cream, she's already experienced what it's like to be a hero on numerous occasions. To be fair, she's still a kid, and you can always learn more. Having said all that, the story has a certain charm to it. How often do you see the likes of Cream the Rabbit face off against Eggman's two robotic lackeys? Based on the tone alone, I can easily see this as an episode of The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Just replace Orba and Cubot with Scratch and Grounder, and Cream with Tails. You know what? I can't get mad over a Cream-focused story. It's all about having a good time. The kids sure did when attacking Orba and Cubot. Suddenly, I'm reminded of the Camp Krusty episode from The Simpsons. And finally, I'm glad they admitted that Restoration HQ is also a mall. Our fourth tale begins at Restoration HQ's back entrance, where everyone is harvesting food from Silver's Victory Garden. Your eyes are not deceiving you? Silver is here. While everyone is having fun picking food and causing mayhem, Silver seems a bit uneasy. He takes off into the woods to be alone. Except he's not. Espio followed. He can sense the trouble in Future Boy. Silver admits he's not here for the harvest. In fact, he doesn't know why he's here this time. Every time he's gone back to the past, it's to fix a bad future, and he's able to narrow down the cause because it's history. Now everything seems fine, but he has this feeling, a fear that something might go wrong, and it's freaking him out. Espio shares some of his wisdom. As a ninja, danger could come at any moment, and if he allows fear to consume him, he's already lost. To counter that fear, he puts his faith in himself and the strength of his friends, and advises Silver to do the same. While he doesn't know why he's in the present at the moment, he is where he needs to be, and he's got friends waiting to back him up. Silver thanks Espio with this awkward hug before they head back to the harvest, and they better hurry before Charmy the Potato King wreaks havoc. As a follow-up to Victory Garden from the 2019 annual, Evan and Gigi take the time to do a little deep dive into Silver. Where we last saw the guy, he returned to a future that seemed like a paradise. No fire or ruins at all. And yet, here he is, back in the present because his something's wrong in the past sense is tingling. The thing is, he's not wrong. Based on who's present at the harvest, the story would have been set between the events of Test Run and Trial by Fire, and during that period, Starline's creation of Surgeon Kid is well underway. Now chances are I'm going to be wrong about this, but I'm going to narrow down the time frame a little further. I'm going to guess this takes place probably sometime after Zeddy Hunt, since if Silver was around during that time, he could have helped stop the Zeddy invasion of Restoration HQ. Anyway, because Evan's the current main writer of the series, I would not be surprised if she inserted Silver in at some point during the Surge Rampage arc, or whatever the arc will ultimately be called. Or perhaps there's something afterwards that would require Silver's assistance. For whatever reason, the story is here to show that he didn't just pop out of nowhere just to be a Deus Ex Machina. Now let's go deeper as to why Silver is here despite getting a good future. I think it's because he doesn't feel like he belongs there. All his life, he's grown up in disaster after disaster, necessitating traveling to Sonic's time to try and fix things. He's been a fighter his whole life, and when he finally got that peaceful world, he doesn't get a chance to enjoy it. He might not even know someone in that good future. So he went back to Sonic's present to continue to fight alongside Sonic and his friends, because he's better acquainted with them at this point. There is also the possibility that the good future has a dark secret. We'll see whether or not this will be addressed later. We also get a little peek into Espio's mindset, that he has control over his fear thanks to trusting himself and his friends. That's what allowed him to succeed in a one-on-one confrontation with Zaz during the climax of the Metal Virus saga. The story has a good message. The future isn't set, and there will be challenges to face. All you can do is believe in yourself and your support group. Also, it's okay to paraphrase City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2. For now, Silver, enjoy the success that is your Victory Garden, before more mayhem ensues. Don't want all that food to go to waste now. This story begins with Jet chilling in his room, and what a mess it is. The guy really loves himself, and is that a torn picture of him and Sonic? Anyway, he's heating up a calzone while reading a belated birthday card from his dad. Hey, a game character having a family member. Unfortunately, once the calzone is done cooking, a Scion Wisp appears and steals it. But it's not just any random wisp. This is one of Whisper's, just bringing her something to eat while she prepares to snipe a giant badnik. Jet arrives and angrily accuses them of not only stealing his food, but costing him precious gem stealing time. His yelling attracts the attention of the super badnik, and it captures him. Jet has Whisper ride his airboard in order to save him. Whisper struggles a little, prompting Jet to ramble on about how he's incredibly gifted and so on and so forth. Whisper's so annoyed by Jet's constant rambling that she actually yells before shooting down the badnik. Jet, still trapped in the hand, is impressed with how Whisper handled the badnik and offers her a chance to join the Babylon Rogues. Whisper declines. She has better things to do. And all Jet gets in the end is a partially eaten calzone. Ian Mulchler is the writer of this story. I have mentioned him before when I talked about his Sonic Forces character Ian Jr. back in my Imposter Syndrome #1 review. But for those who don't know, he's a storyboard artist that worked on the 6th episode of Sonic Mania Adventures, the Team Sonic Racing Overdrive shorts, and even the first episode of Tails Tube. This also marks the debut of Natalie Haynes, at least when it comes to doing interior art on a Sonic book. She has done some covers in the past. This is definitely an unlikely pair. The loudmouth narcissist Jet the Hog, again, look at his room, and the quiet, stealthy Whisper. This meetup wouldn't have happened if not for that Wisp stealing Jet's calzone. I'm siding with Jet on this one. Stealing food from someone else is not cool, especially if it's a calzone. Those things are delicious. I understand Whisper getting hungry while hunting badniks, and it's probably not the first time her Wisp buddy snatched food from random places, including other people, but this is Sonic's world, not Planet Wisp. I'm sure on Planet Wisp they have no problem picking food from wherever they can find it. Hold on, what do Wisps eat? Do they even eat at all? Anyway, on Sonic's world, unless there's a tree with food on it, stealing them from other people is wrong, even if you're stealing from thieves. They gotta eat too. The giant badnik. I would not be surprised if Muchler was inspired by Eggman's giant robot from the second Sonic movie. It was a surreal experience seeing Whisper riding an airboard. Before you mention why she didn't use her Wispin hover ability, she needed laser mode to shoot it down, and I didn't see any tall enough trees she could land on. It also looks like the robot was moving a bit too fast. As for Jet offering her a place among the Babylon rogues, it was oddly nice of him, but is that how it works? You impress the leader and you can join his crew just like that? Now for its placement in the timeline. I'd like to say it's before Whisper's first visit to Spiral Hill Village in the 2019 annual, since the two don't seem to recognize each other. After what happened at the Mineral Museum in that annual, Whisper would know about these guys. She pointed this out in the aforementioned Glad to Be Alive party. This was a strange one, but like Hero Camp, there is a certain charm to it, though I am against stealing food or anything else in general. Our final story has Rough and Tumble in an abandoned building in Spiral Hill Village. They're arguing over how to get their rhyming intros just right, or else people will laugh at them. We actually saw this process back in Bad Guys issue 3. Rough wants to brush that aside for the moment so he can focus on a plan. Tumble instead wants to iron out the rhyming intros first before discussing the plan. The argument gets a bit heated until Rough just forces Tumble to leave. That night, Rough and Tumble, independently, go to the Mineral Museum to steal a recently discovered Chaos Emerald on display. They both just happen to see each other about to take the emerald, along with their new partners, Rouge the Bat and Tangle the Lemur. The girls trick the two into fighting each other, and we learn how each of them got a skunk brother as a partner. Rouge just happened to be in the neighborhood when Tumble flagged her down and told her of the plan to take the emerald so it wouldn't fall into Eggman's hands. Likewise, Rough practically begged Tangle to work together to protect the emerald, though according to Tangle, he really wanted someone to boss around. As the Skunk Brothers fight, they realize they had the exact same plan to trick a hero into helping them steal the emerald. As a result, they make up and are ready to throw down with Rouge and Tangle. Tangle easily takes them out and restrains them, but the true winner in all this is Rouge, who makes off with the emerald. Yeah, earlier Rouge tricked Tangle into thinking they'll work together against Rough and Tumble, only for Tangle to do the hard work so Rouge can steal the emerald no problem. At least Rough and Tumble made up, so there's that. This is the first time Aaron Hammerstrom has done writing work for IDW Sonic, and in terms of unlikely pairings, there was a lot of comparing and contrasting. For part of the story, we got a guy and a girl pair, both with R&T names, and one's a villain and the other a hero. Rough seems to have gotten a better deal by having Tangle, because, you know, her main trait is her tail and all that. Another thing to compare and contrast is the antagonist duo versus the heroic duo. The brothers may have their disagreements and, rough patches, but the moment they're on the same wavelength, they make up and get back together. Rouge and Tangle may seem like they're on the same side, but when it comes to precious gems, the experienced thief, treasure hunter, will backstab her naive companion at the opportune moment. For the record, that's always been my beef with Rouge. You want to give Tangle a hug after all that. She did the hard work, but failed to save the emerald. I think the lesson we can take from this story is communication matters. Also, if you find a Chaos Emerald, hide it, bury it, do something that prevents it from attracting thieves. And that's it for this year's annual. It was an interesting experience going through all those stories featuring unlikely pairs. Some of them had deeper meanings, and others were just silly. And even the deeper ones had silly moments, but I still enjoyed all of them to some degree. I kinda want to see more unexpected encounters in the future, either in the main book or spin-off material. With that, have a good day everyone. Charmy, what are you planning to do with those shears? Welcome everyone to the beginning of a new IDW Sonic miniseries event, Scrapnik Island. Unlike previous miniseries, which focused on comic-exclusive characters, this one stars not only game characters, but Sonic and Tails themselves. Also, it's the first miniseries not penned by Ian Flynn. Instead, we get semi-newcomer Daniel Barnes. I say semi because earlier this year, he made his IDW Sonic debut in the 2022 annual. He wrote the story where E123 Omega and Gemroll beat the ever-living tar out of each other. I talked a little bit about Daniel there, that he worked on a comic series called The Black Mage, and he took some writing inspiration from Ian Flynn himself. And I think we'll get some of that influence in today's outing. But Daniel's main influence for this miniseries comes from horror movies and comics, as his goal is to, quote, tell a really creepy and atmospheric story with a vibe that Sonic fans aren't normally used to. There are some surprises in this one that I don't think readers are going to see coming. How appropriate then that the first issue was released during Halloween month. I mean, the covers themselves remind me of horror movie posters. To get this out of the way, there will be spoilers from this point forward regarding this issue and any information regarding to future issues. I recommend clicking away and reading this one for yourself if you don't want anything ruined. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and dive right in. Like all spooky stories, it begins on a dark and stormy night, as Sonic and Tails are struggling to fly through it. They spot a nearby landmass they could possibly land on to ride out the storm. Unfortunately, it consists of the remains of the Death Egg, the original one from Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Before they can land, lightning damages their plane's wing, and they spiral out of control. This looks familiar. Sonic wakes up in a dark room full of Badnik remains. As he gets his bearings, he discovers that someone placed a makeshift metal boot on his left leg, or rather his foot, thus neutralizing Sonic's main attribute. And I'm not comfortable with the design of this thing. Oh, I hope that's rust. He looks around for Tails, only to find a Miles Electric nearby. He picks it up to use as a flashlight and starts searching for his little buddy, unaware that some of the Badnik remains are not quite dead. As Sonic looks for Tails, someone is constantly keeping an eye on him. A red eye to be precise. Eventually, Sonic comes across a sunflower in a container. Before he can investigate further, he hears a noise coming from another room. One large enough to house the remains of the egg carrier. I assume it's the first one and not the one Perfect Chaos destroyed near the end of Sonic Adventure. Sonic finds the source of the noise, and it's coming from a damaged coconut Badnik that just happens to have the lower body of a caterpillar. More of these slapped together Badniks appear and approach Sonic. Oh, it gets worse. As Sonic backs up, he bumps into the last thing he'd ever see in a place like this. Mega Sonic 2 from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. He's looking pretty good for someone that Sonic and later Knuckles fought against. Since the events of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, he's rusted to the point that most of the blue is gone, he's gained a cloak or poncho of some kind, replaced his right arm for that of a crab meat's, and his left leg is replaced by Mecha Boo's saw. Now that I think about it, his left leg has been altered just like Sonic's. Metal boot or not, Sonic tries making a run for it, but it turns out his left foot was injured in the crash. Sonic can spin dash his way out of the room, but without his speed, he can only get so far before Mecha Sonic and the junk Badniks catch him. So Sonic's best option is to hide inside an animal capsule. There's some irony for ya. Too bad Mecha Sonic finds him and opens the capsule. Luckily, Sonic uses a piece of debris from the capsule as a snowboard and speeds off. However, his brief chance to get some distance ends when an E-Series robot causes him to wipe out. Thankfully, Tails arrives beside the robot and explains the situation. The Scrapniks, as they're called, helped Tails drag Sonic inside after the crash and built that leg brace for him. The E-Series unit, who introduces himself as E117 Sigma, has some standout things design-wise besides the damaged look. He wears a scarf, has a makeshift monocle over the right eye, and his right arm has been replaced by an egg robos. That makes sense because he's based on the basic E100 series model akin to E102 Gamma, and by default, their right hand is actually a blaster. He apologizes for not only scaring Sonic, but for Sonic and Tails being here in the first place. The storm they flew through in the beginning was caused by the station's malfunctioning climate disruptor, a problem that's not fully resolved. For now though, the storm's passed, and Sigma leads them outside where he introduces them to Scrapnik Island proper. He also says that until their plane is repaired, Sonic and Tails are free to make themselves at home. Tails of course acts like a kid in a toy store. So all seems well, right? The Scrapniks are friendly and helpful, and soon Sonic and Tails will be on their way. Well, seeing Sonic again briefly causes Mecha Sonic's eye to turn red. Yeah, it seems that the Attack Sonic programming is fighting to get out. Not only that, everyone's being watched from a distance by someone who doesn't want Sonic and Tails around. Mecha Knuckles from Sonic Advance 1. What he has going on for him is, his left arm has been replaced by a spike ball, his right hand is utilizing a shovel claw, and lastly, he's wearing Knuckles' OVA hat. Where do these guys keep finding articles of clothing? I can see why this first issue was released in October. Turns out Daniel was right. It's filled with a chilling atmosphere found in horror works. The hero alone inside a haunted house, filled with ghosts and monsters from the past, having to run away and trying to hide from the bigger threat, and as a bonus, the hero suffers from some injury that prevents easy escape. The red eye invokes the old painting looking at the person cliche, and even the panels where Mecha Sonic and E117 Sigma reveal themselves invoke the freeze frame monster reveal. All it's missing is some scary chords. The art team of Jack Lawrence and Natalie Fordrain helped contribute to this spooky atmosphere, from the derelict, dilapidated look of the Death Egg interior to the designs of the Scrapniks themselves. Actually, there's a third party who helped contribute to the lesser Scrapniks, Min Ho Kim. Appearance-wise, they could give the mishmash badniks from Test Run a run for their money. Though unlike those badniks, the Scrapniks seem friendly enough, offering sanctuary to Sonic and Tails while their plane's being fixed, and treating Sonic's injury. Even though the brace looks like something Jigsaw would build, they kinda remind me of Sid's toys from Toy Story. And believe it or not, some of them even have names. First, there's Juno, a combination of a bat brain, caterpillar, and some other random badnik. Tom, a combination between a Newton, a ball hog, and a grounder. And then we have Lloyd, a combination of a big bomb, an Anton, and another random badnik. There is one more named badnik done by Thomas Roth Listberger, and it's called Nevin, a combination of a buzz bomber, a crab meat, a dragonfly, a Jaws, and a Newton. We'll get more Scrapnik reveals as the miniseries goes on. Going back to Sonic's injury, it's amusing that Sonic once again suffered an injury that's the result of a crash, and it takes away his running ability. Same leg too. Did Daniel know about Ian and Evan's plan to injure Sonic during the issue 50 aftermath? Or is it just a happy coincidence? Robbing Sonic of his speed will make things harder for him and Tails when things go down within the next 3 issues. While the tone may have appeared to have done a mood whiplash at the end, there's still a sinister vibe in the air, particularly with the 3 main robots. Mecha Sonic is obvious as he's glitching between passive and attack Sonic mode when the Hedgehog re-entered his life. He could go off at any moment. Then there's Mecha Knuckles. From what I've read online about the rest of the miniseries, he's going to act like his fleshy template and protect Scrapnik Island from unwanted visitors. Can't wait to see what kind of stunts he pulls. Then there's E117 Sigma, the most friendly of the robots. I don't trust him. I could be wrong, but it seems he's playing that horror movie character that acts all chummy and polite, only to be secretly a villain. Plus, nothing good can come from a robot named Sigma. On a personal note, I'm very happy the story continues the recent love of Sonic 3 and Knuckles material in the comics. Between visiting Marble Garden in Free Comic Book Day 2022, waltzing through Lava Wreath in the 2022 annual, and now having the Death Egg and Mecha Sonic appear, it puts a smile on my face. The miniseries itself is off to a great start. There are of course some questions like, how did Eggman's discarded stuff like the Death Egg and the Egg Carrier wound up here? And what is the significance of the Sunflower? These questions may or may not be answered in the next 3 issues, and I'm actually okay if they're not. Sometimes mysteries should remain mysteries, especially in a horror setting. We'll see what happens next time in Scrapnik Island Issue 2. Sonic discovering the Sunflower in a container is reminding me of Beauty and the Beast for some reason. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic's Scrapnik Island Issue 2. Before I continue, I'm going to place my spoiler warning here. Now I highly recommend reading, or at the very least, rewatching my review of the first issue, and read this one before proceeding with today's review. Nevertheless, I'll go ahead and give you a quick rundown of what's happening so far. Sonic and Tails crash land on an artificial island made up of remnants of the Death Egg called Scrapnik Island. So named because of its inhabitants, the Scrapniks. Badniks that utilize different parts of other Badniks to patch themselves together. Despite their scary appearance, they seem friendly enough, especially since Sonic injured his foot in the crash, and he and Tails are stuck here until their plane is repaired. However, our heroes are not completely out of the woods. Mecha Knuckles is ready to defend his home against intruders. Mecha Sonic's attack Sonic programming is beginning to resurface, and while he's been a polite host, I have a feeling E117 Sigma is hiding something. Will this feeling remain at the end of this issue? Let's find out. We start with a flashback to E117 Sigma washing up on what would become Scrapnik Island. He reactivates and starts moving inland. When we next see him, he's in his current look. Sigma just finished patching up an egg robo, and as he reveals, it wasn't the first. We move ahead further to when the Scrapniks are starting to build their society. A patched up Hoi Hall, the Mushroom Hill Zone mini-boss, informs Sigma of a new arrival that washed up on shore, Mecha Sonic. In the present day, on that same beach, Sonic is chilling out while Tails is tweaking with the Miles Electric, specifically its translator feature. He's able to decrypt the Scrapniks' communication signals and convert them to rudimentary speech, but they can only talk through the speakers. Besides, the only thing the Scrapniks can say right now is hello. Sigma and his party arrive, and he's impressed with Tails' work. Tails said the work was easy, since the Scrapniks are made up of older model Badniks that have easily hackable signals. Everyone is so amazed about the Scrapniks' ability to talk, they fail to notice Mecha Sonic glitching out again. Anyway, Sigma lets Sonic and Tails know about the state of their plane. The good news is, the damage sustained is repairable. The bad news is, the power source for the plane, the integrated drive generator, is cracked. It needs to be replaced, and those things aren't easy to find. Fortunately, Sigma may know where a spare one is, though it requires a little trip into the Death Egg. Sonic wants to join in, despite his foot being injured. Sigma reassures a worried Tails that he and Mecha Sonic will see to his safety. He also suggests that Tails stay with his assistants so that they can get to work on the plane. Inside the Death Egg, Sonic, Sigma, and Mecha Sonic take a brief detour so that the latter can water the Sunflower. Sigma explains it washed up on shore one day, and Mecha Sonic's been caring for it ever since, with the goal of planting it on real soil one day. It is here we learn that the Scrapniks' ultimate goal is to leave this island. While they still consider the place their home, they still feel trapped under Eggman's shadow, only by relocating elsewhere that they can find true happiness. The egg carrier Sonic saw earlier, Sigma and the others are reconstructing it so that they'll leave this place behind. As the three press onward, they are unknowingly being stalked by Mecha Knuckles. It is then Sigma suggests the old tried and true horror movie cliche of splitting up. That way, they'll have a better chance of finding the drive generator, though Sonic will be pairing with Mecha Sonic. This gives the two a chance to bury the hatchet and make a fresh start. Before they shake on it, Mecha Knuckles makes his move. Mecha Sonic manages to get Sonic out of the way just in time. Rather than face him head on, Mecha Sonic takes Sonic back to Sigma, just when he located the driver generator 2. Mecha Knuckles arrives, and Sigma tells Sonic that his original Eggman directive to guard the Master Emerald Shrine was so embedded in his programming that he couldn't remove it. Thus, he altered it so that Mecha Knuckles has to guard the egg carrier, or scrambled egg carrier as he called it, instead. Sigma tries to get Mecha Knuckles to stand down, to no avail. And like that, Sigma's taken out. Mecha Sonic steps in, and the two go at it. This is surreal, and yet somehow familiar. During the fight, Mecha Sonic starts hallucinating his fight with both Sonic and Knuckles on Sky Sanctuary. As Mecha Sonic attacks the Sonic hallucination, he calls him trash. Then the hallucination changes to a pixelated all-black Eggman, stating Mecha Sonic is his greatest creation to date. And all this is happening during the fight with Mecha Knuckles, remember? Maybe. There is a good chance that everything Mecha Sonic is witnessing is happening all in his head, just as he's lying there after getting hit by Mecha Knuckles' spiked ball. Regardless, the hallucination finishes with Knuckles punching through Mecha Sonic, and as he falls down, Sonic's words trash keep echoing in his head. Then he reactivates and spin dashes into Mecha Knuckles just before he can get to Sonic. Well, that takes care of that problem. Unfortunately for Sonic, Mecha Sonic's attack Sonic program has fully kicked in, and the issue ends with the patched up doppelganger grabbing Sonic by the neck. It seems E117 Sigma is generally on the level. After all, it's not uncommon for Eggman's robots, especially those of the E-series line, to turn against their master. Since he pretty much founded Scrapnik Island, all he wants is a peaceful life for him and his Scrapnik cohorts, as well as help Sonic and Tails leave the island without incident. He even provides Tails help in the form of his 3 egg robo-assistants. Daniel Barnes reveals on his Twitter the names of the trio, which Natalie Fordrain designed. The one wearing the bandana is Florentine, the one wearing a sweater around his waist and carrying a big wrench, Benedict, and the one wearing the baseball cap is Rancheros. Rancheros, by the way, is the egg robo Sigma was working on in the flashback, if you didn't know already. It was also an interesting choice to start with the flashback, though again, it's to show how sincere Sigma is about changing his ways, and to show off his ability to cobble together as many of the Scrapniks seen today. I hope he found an alternate power source, since it would still be morbid to use live animals. Presumably, he also got rid of the programming that made the Scrapniks hostile in the first place. Though when it comes to the more advanced units, it seems Eggman's hostile programming was too much for Sigma to fully purge, even when he thought he did. To be fair, they were robotic doppelgangers, so Eggman may have had some extra work done on them. I'm surprised Mecha Knuckles got taken out after all the buildup he had. Considering who he was up against and how he got wrecked again, yeah, it makes sense. I was hoping he'd stick around longer, but his presence served to bring forth the true antagonist of this miniseries, Mecha Sonic. Before I dive deeper into him, I want to briefly touch upon the fight between the two. This reminds me of another Mecha Sonic vs Mecha Knuckles fight, specifically Archie Sonic's Mecha Madness, though in that case it was the actual characters that were turned into robots. I wonder if Daniel took some inspiration from that story arc. Although, from what I've read, he was not aware of Archie Sonic's Island of Misfit Badniks, so who knows. The fight also reminded me of 2 Terminators, one good and one bad, attacking each other to protect/destroy the intended target. Then it kinda shifts over to a Freddy vs Jason situation, where it became a fight to decide who will take out their target. It's almost sad to see Mecha Sonic go from caring for a single sunflower to holding Sonic by the neck. But again, it's due to the fight with Mecha Knuckles. That was the worst possible time to hallucinate/have a PTSD flashback to his fight with Sonic and Knuckles. Good on the comic for remembering that Mecha Sonic fought both of them in the game Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Sonic merely incapacitated him and left him for dead, while Knuckles was the one to finish the job. Since then, the remains presumably fell into the ocean until they wound up on Scrapnik Island. The sequence where Mecha Sonic goes nuts is freaky. Props to Jack Lawrence for the visual journey into Mecha's mind, with the Sonic and Knuckles hybrid, and the figures of the two plus shadowy Eggman looming over his head. The glitchiness is a nice way to hide their classic features, by the way. Then we have the words of Sonic describing Mecha Sonic as trash, after he's been called his greatest creation by Eggman. No wonder his original programming kicked in. This sequence illustrates what Sigma said earlier, that the Scrapniks, even though they're trying to change, are still under Eggman's shadow. From Mechasonic's point of view, he does not want to be seen as trash, and he wants revenge. He starts by wrecking Knuckles. To be fair, Mecha Knuckles was disguised as the real thing in Sonic Advance 1, which the comic does a nice callback by the way, and now he's ready to take revenge on Sonic, who has a major disadvantage at the moment. Alright, let's move on to a couple more things right quick. First of all, I've read online that the image of Scrapnik Island is essentially the death egg that's been cracked open, and in the center is like the yolk. Nice visual there. And then we have one of the more lighthearted moments of the issue, Tails translating the Scrapnik language verbally through the Miles Electric, a step up from the language to text method from Sonic Colors. We also got some new Scrapnik designs, once again courtesy of Min-Ho Kim, who by the way watches my channel. Hi. Anyway, the new designs. We have Ben, Judd, Emily, and Cyril. Honestly, it's kinda hard to identify which Badniks they're made up of, though I do recognize the Octus Badnik for Emily's head. Still, kudos on these designs. While the horror theme has been toned down a bit, it's still present, this time emphasizing on the more psychological horror via Mechasonic's mind screw, and I have a feeling based on one of the covers for next issue, that the horror elements are going to ramp up again. In hindsight, it was a good idea for Tails to stay behind, because now he can stage a rescue. So come back next time as he and the Scrapniks try to figure out how to save Sonic from an even deadlier Mechasonic. See ya then. Greatest creation to date, huh? If Sonic Origins is accurate, that's ultimately a slap in the face, as Eggman's greatest creation is his very first and still active robotic duplicate, Metal Sonic. Kinda makes me want to see these two duke it out. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Scrapnik Island Issue 3. I'm going to go ahead and place my spoiler warnings here, because things are starting to go downhill for Sonic. And last time it was going so well. Despite looking intimidating, the Scrapniks made Sonic and Tails as comfortable as possible as they helped them repair their plane. Though not all the Scrapniks were fond of their guests. Mecha Knuckles attacked Sonic, E-117 Sigma, and Mecha Sonic while they were searching for plane parts in the Death Egg. Mecha Knuckles was defeated by Mecha Sonic, but not before Mecha Knuckles briefly knocked Mecha Sonic offline and caused his malicious programming to resurface. Now he has his red eye on the still injured Sonic. Mecha Sonic has Sonic strapped to a table with some Eggman-shaped contraption over his head. Sonic says he really needs to stop with the whole give his enemies the benefit of a doubt routine, as it tends to not work out for him in the long run. Gee, you think? Mecha Sonic disregards Sonic for the moment in order to monitor Tails and Sigma's assistance before focusing his attention towards the Miles Electric. What's sad is that, as Sonic pointed out a moment ago, Mecha Sonic seemed to have changed for the better, even to the point of taking care of a little flower. It's best exemplified by more flashbacks. Sigma had just rebuilt Mecha Sonic the best he could, and he explains that while on Scrapnik Island, Mecha is free to discover his new self. Then we get a montage of the two building the Scrapnik Society, discovering the sunflower on the beach, and Mecha Sonic being praised by the lesser Scrapniks. Well, that Mecha Sonic is gone, as in the present, Sigma reboots and finds the destroyed Mecha Knuckles and recognizes Mecha Sonic's handiwork. He's not the only one to discover something's wrong with Mecha. One of the lesser Scrapniks, Ben, spots Sonic at his mercy and informs Tails via the Miles Electric. Without missing a beat, the two-tailed fox rummages through the nearby junk to assemble a blaster for himself. Now, he and the Egg Robo assistants are ready to menace Mecha Sonic. No, seriously, Tails slapped together a Sega Menacer, the company's answer to the Super Nintendo's Super Scope. The four of them head down the Death Egg's dark hallways while using the Electric as a tracking device. It picks up movement nearby, and the group ready themselves for an ambush, only for the target to be Sigma carrying Mecha Knuckles. He explains to Tails what might have happened to Mecha Sonic. When he rebuilt him, he tried rewriting Eggman's coding the best he could. However, he believes his old protocols have reawakened and twisted his mind. In other words, Mecha's not thinking clearly. A voice coming from the Miles Electric says otherwise. Mecha Sonics. He plays a game of cat and mouse with the group as he goes on a little spiel on what it means to be discarded. At the same time, he uses his speed to start picking them off one by one, starting with Sigma. Next, he grabs Rancheros from behind as he tries in vain to shoot at him. Tails and the remaining two assistants retreat, with Tails pointing out that he underestimated Mecha's speed. Before they can find a small space to stand their ground, Tails finds himself alone, with Mecha Sonic emerging from the shadows. He explains that Eggman considered him his greatest creation to aid him in world domination, and after being rebuilt, he'd hoped the Doctor would retrieve him. Instead, he was abandoned and left to rot on a junk island. He intends to correct this error, and two key aspects of this plan involve Sonic and the Miles Electric. Mecha Sonic offers Tails the chance to walk away if he just hands the device over. Tails refuses, and the two start fighting. Hey Tails, maybe you should try short controlled bursts. When Mecha Sonic knocks the Menacer away, Tails relies on a spin attack to score a hit. I guess spin attack does what Sega don't, huh? This would prove to be Tails' downfall, as Mecha Sonic grabs him and steals the Miles Electric. He's not done with the fox yet. In order to give him a taste of what it's like to be discarded, Mecha Sonic tosses Tails down a nearby garbage chute, where he disappears into darkness. Mecha Sonic returns with the tablet, and when Sonic demands to know where his buddy is, all Mecha can say is he will be joining him soon. We end the issue with what Mecha might be planning to do with Sonic. Use the Miles Electric as part of a mechanism to swap each other's minds. I think that's what's going on based on the monitor right there. I admit, based on the preview pages, I thought we'd be diving into torture horror, the kind featured in movies such as Hostel. I will not show any pictures from that horror genre because even I have limits. So instead, enjoy looking at one of the alternate covers for this issue. In reality, the issue dives into the sci-fi action horror genre with some mad science sprinkled on top. The obvious inspiration being Aliens. Great movie, by the way. The big giveaways being Tails' tracker being similar to the ones being used by the Colonial Marines, a recognizable line from the movie, and the group being ambushed by something that has a home turf advantage. This was definitely not a bug hunt. The way Mecha Sonic took care of Sigma and his assistants was terrifying. By the way, I've since learned that the assistants' names were based on egg dishes. Because of course they are. We don't know what he did to them, but I'm guessing it wasn't pretty. But that's the thing with sci-fi action horror. There's always some hapless soldiers that fall victim to the monster, while the one heroic character stands a somewhat better chance against it. As Tails takes charge in this issue, I can't help but be reminded of Tails' 30th anniversary special that came out earlier this year. Spoilers for that special incoming. There are a lot of similarities, like Sonic getting kidnapped by the story's villain, Tails working together with the island locals in an attempt to rescue him, and he even MacGyvers some makeshift devices in order to carry out this task. Even these panels look similar. I wonder, just like the Sonic leg injury thing, was Daniel and company aware of the Tails' 30th anniversary special as they were creating this miniseries, or is it just another happy coincidence? Update, based on this Twitter post by Daniel himself, something tells me he knew. Anyway, back to the review. Well, unlike the special where Tails was dealing with dangerously cartoony villains, Tails is dealing with a much more menacing threat. Despite his best shot, he loses and is tossed away. But this is something horror films, and other genres in general, do. Leave a character presumed dead, then they come back at the 11th hour to aid in the final battle. That's what I assume will happen in the final issue. For the time being, I do like the panels of Tails descending into darkness. Mecha Sonic falling back into his villainous ways is an interesting study. According to Sigma, he tried rewriting Mecha's original programming, which resulted in the helpful flower-loving robot that we first saw him in the story. But then the original program resurfaced, thanks to the fight with Mecha Knuckles, and his mind's now warped. In this issue, Mecha claims that his mind is finally clear, and that he hated being on Scrapnik Island, and wanted Eggman to retrieve him so that they can rule the world together. Yeah, I'm going to go with Sigma's earlier explanation on this one. How else would Mecha Sonic go from protecting Sonic from Mecha Knuckles last issue to strapping Sonic on a table in this one? Being knocked out and seeing those visions more than likely remind him of who he truly was, and he relapsed when he reactivated. It is also possible that the original program was always present and active. It was just buried by Sigma's handiwork. Upon seeing Sonic again, it occasionally popped up until the fight with Mecha Knuckles brought it out in full force. In a way, Sigma might have brainwashed Mecha when he tried to reprogram him, and the original personality could do nothing but observe. If that's the case, no wonder he went mad. Mecha Sonic's plan seems to be a mind swap with Sonic, using old Death Egg equipment and the Miles Electric. I assume Tails' communication algorithm he created last time somehow makes this possible. We know this plan won't succeed because it's Sonic, though it would be an interesting twist if it did. Based on Mecha's dialogue, he was not happy that Eggman abandoned him and that he wants revenge. Let's assume Mecha's plan works and he ends up inside Sonic's body. Essentially, he'll become Sonic and will go after Eggman. If so, he'll find out the reason the doctor never retrieved him. He already has a better robotic Sonic. People have said in the comments of my issue 2 video that Mecha Sonic came first, then it was Metal Sonic. But as I said in that video, according to Sonic Origins, the newest compilation of Sonics 1 through 3 and CD, CD falls squarely between 1 and 2. Personally though, I would have had CD placed after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because of the logical progression of Sonic's robotic duplicates, from the clunky Mecha Sonic 1 to the sleeker Mecha Sonic 2, and finally the one and only Metal Sonic. But that's not the case. So unless Sega retcons the order of the 4 games again, which is a Sega move these days, as of now, CD is between 1 and 2, meaning Metal Sonic is now the first duplicate, and chances are IDW Sonic will more than likely honor this order. Sonic's words about giving villains a second chance only to backfire on him later. I wonder if Daniel took notice of all the times people complained whenever Sonic goes easy on his enemies and the consequences that follow? Why else would he write these words for Sonic? To be fair, the consequences involve factors beyond Sonic's control, and he was called out for these acts. Now depending on when this takes place in the timeline, we may see Sonic cut back on showing his enemies mercy a bit. Maybe. Okay, Easter eggs. The Sega Menacer. I love it when Sega products make their way into Sonic stories. There was the VR headset in the test run arc, and even looking at the games, there's the Dreamcast in Eggman's cockpit from Sonic Unleashed. Remember that? If not, you just learned something today. What will be the next Sega product the creators will sneak into these stories? The Sega Activator? The Aura Interactor? Or perhaps the Simulator 2 Action Chair? Daniel pointed out on his Twitter a nod to Sonic 3 and Knuckles that would have gone over my head. When Tails' scouter locked on to Mecha Sonic, those words were referencing the advertising of Sonic and Knuckles' lock-on technology, aka combining it with Sonic 3 for a more complete experience, or with Sonic 2 so you can play as Knuckles. There is one more Easter egg I want to point out. Colorist Natalie Fordrain posted this image of Mecha Sonic alongside this one from Metroid Fusion. I think she's trying to imply that in this issue, Mecha Sonic is the SA-X. Both are unstoppable doppelgangers of the main hero, and both stalk their prey. The issue continues to deliver on the horror atmosphere, while at the same time gives off a tragic element. You feel bad for Sigma, who just wants a life free from Eggman's shadow, only for things to go wrong, and despite being the horror movie monster of this story, there is something tragic about Mecha Sonic being abandoned by his creator. Reminds me of a certain iconic horror movie monster. Like many horror movie monsters, he needs to be taken down. We'll see what happens next time between Sonic and Mecha Sonic as Scrapnik Island comes to a close. See ya then. Game over, Tails. Game over. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Scrapnik Island Issue 4, the conclusion to the miniseries. As always, from this point forward, there will be spoilers. Things got darker last time as Mecha Sonic's plan for Sonic was to swap minds with him so he can get his revenge on Dr. Eggman for abandoning him. The key to his plan was Tails' Miles Electric, which the Two-Tailed Fox brought with him when he and the Egg Robo assistants tried to rescue Sonic. Unfortunately, Mecha Sonic plucked off the rescue party one by one, stole the Miles Electric, and threw Tails down a garbage chute to his apparent demise. Now, Mecha Sonic is ready to execute his plan. Here we are, Sonic strapped to the table, unable to do anything as Mecha Sonic makes the final preparations for the mind transfer process. We learn more about what that thing on Sonic's head is, an old prototype that Eggman was going to use to directly control Badniks with his mind. But once he successfully got it working, he got bored with it and moved on to something else. Typical. Also, you may be wondering why we're seeing modern Eggman instead of classic Eggman here. Maybe when Sigma was reprogramming Mecha Sonic, he could have updated Eggman's image profile, since Sigma was more than likely built after Sonic Adventure. Or at the very least, the Scrapniks were able to glance at what Eggman looks like now, thanks to the egg carrier they have. By the way, Mecha's doing all this mad science because he believes the scrambled egg carrier won't fly. Using the helmet set up with the Miles Electric, Mecha will transfer himself into Sonic's mind because he plans to use the Hedgehog's abilities to run on water to finally escape Scrapnik Island. Presumably once his foot heals, cause that's still an issue. Sonic tries to shame Mecha by pointing out that he'll be abandoning Sigma and the other Scrapniks, his friends. Mecha replies the Scrapniks were never his friends, and considers the concept of friendship a weakness. Oh, I can list a number of examples where you're wrong about that, but let's move on. Mecha Sonic begins the procedure, and it appears to be working. Too bad for him, the lesser Scrapniks, who were watching from above, overheard the entire conversation. They distract him long enough so they can destroy the machine, canceling the process. Angry that his work is ruined, he unleashes his frustrations out on the Scrapniks the only way he knows how. I'll crush you! As the Scrapniks free Sonic, the Hedgehog hears a voice in his head, along with fragmented memories and feelings of anger and sadness, and it's not coming from him. How interesting! Odd feelings or not, the Scrapniks are in trouble, and Sonic jumps to their defense. Sonic and Mecha run through the hallways, with Sonic forcing himself forward despite the pain. That's when the voice pops back into Sonic's head, and yeah, it's Mecha Sonic's. When the Scrapniks interrupted the mind transfer process, it somehow caused the two minds to link, and thus can now sense each other's feelings. There's something familiar about this. Mecha tells Sonic he knows nothing about pain, or what it's like to lose your purpose in life. He's confident he'll win this time due to Sonic being limited by his injury. Oh Mecha, Sonic's got your limit right here. They speed through the Death Egg's incinerator, that's still operational for some reason, and duke it out inside the central furnace. Sonic manages to get an opening and kicks Mecha in the face with his injured foot, not only breaking the boot off, but literally kickstarting Mecha's Sigma programming. More than likely due to the link they share, Sonic senses the return of good Mecha and tries to save his robotic doppelganger from a fiery demise, only for said doppelganger to refuse. Wait a minute. I guess the creators took more from the Sonic OVA than just Knuckles' hat. Mecha's envious of Sonic's carefree lifestyle, and that he's a failure at both destroying him and protecting the Scrapniks. Unlike OVA Sonic, this Sonic won't let the robot melt into nothingness. He gives the old, you determine your own purpose spiel before once again reaching out for Mecha's hand. This time, Mecha Sonic accepts. That's nice and all, however, Sonic overdid it during the fight and cannot move. Cue the arrival of Tails. Told you he'd return during the climax. He and the Scrapniks, including Sigma and a repaired Mecha Knuckles, pull the two out of the furnace. As all the smaller Scrapniks surround Mecha Sonic, Sigma begs for forgiveness. He did not understand what Mecha was going through on the inside. Sonic and Tails watch, and the former starts crying. Sonic claims they're not his tears. Due to the link between him and Mecha, he's right. Still think friendship is a weakness, Mecha? Soon after, Tails was able to remove the Eggman programming from both Mecha Sonic and Mecha Knuckles. Sigma thanks Sonic and Tails for everything they've done, and they go off to repair the tornado. The final 2 pages feature some narration by Mecha Sonic. That or he's mentally talking to Sonic. Either way, Mecha Sonic states how he plans to move forward from his dark past, and embrace an uncertain future with his Scrapnik friends. And as he watches Sonic and Tails leave the island with the rest of the Scrapniks, he vows to live for tomorrow while cradling his sunflower. It's not every day that a horror villain gets a happy ending. I mean, I can't even think of one off the top of my head. The closest I can come up with is the monster in Young Frankenstein, but even then that's an affectionate parody that leans more towards comedy than horror. In that film, the monster is loved and accepted, just like Mecha Sonic at the end. Though in order to reach that point, Mecha had to dabble in villainy before literally getting some sense knocked into him. Mecha's crazy and desperate plan to escape Scrapnik Island. He has witnessed firsthand at what Sonic can do. However, he's only seeing things from a machine's point of view. While he is capable of smashing robots and running on water, Sonic is still a living being with limitations. For crying out loud, his foot was injured throughout most of the arc. Had the transfer succeeded, like I said in the summary, Mecha would have to wait for Sonic's foot to heal enough to start running on water. Even then, a number of factors could go wrong for Mecha if he attempted this feat. Pardon the pun. Sonic's foot could give out in an inopportune moment, and he'd fall into the water and drown. Then there are things like the body's stamina and the massive ocean waves, which could more than likely result in the same outcome. Fact is, we don't know how far it is between Scrapnik Island and the nearest populated landmass. It has to be hundreds of miles at least. Why do you think Sonic and Tails utilize a tornado in this story? And yet, Mecha is crazy enough to take the risk if it means leaving Scrapnik Island. Even if by some chance Mecha succeeded, as I have said before, he would discover Eggman's other loyal robotic doppelganger, meaning the Doctor would have moved on from him, which could have added to the tragedy of Mecha Sonic. It's a good thing the Scrapniks, well, scrapped that plan. Okay, that one was intentional. I'm not that bothered by the Scrapniks easily stopping the mind transfer process. For one, they're smaller and more maneuverable, there's a lot of them, and as you saw, they caught Mecha off guard. It's kind of like how insects would behave. As for why they're present, they could have been crawling around and randomly spotted Sonic in danger like the Scrapnik Ben last issue. Or perhaps Ben told them after informing Tails. Whatever the case, they saved Sonic's life. It must have hurt them to see Mecha doing a bad thing, and him denouncing them as friends, especially since thanks to the flashbacks, Mecha was beloved by the Scrapniks. Although in their defense, they may not know about the Eggman programming issue. Having him say he'll crush them didn't help the situation. When the preview pages containing this line were released, people went nuts. For those unaware, the line "I'll crush you" comes from the web series Super Mario Bros. Z, a crossover between Mario and Sonic in the tone of Dragon Ball Z, using game sprites. One of the villains was Mecha Sonic, and during the conflict between him and the heroes, the Axum Rangers from Super Mario RPG decide to challenge Mecha to a fight. It doesn't go well for them. Before he made quick work of the group, he said the line people were jumping for joy over. Confession time, I never saw SMBZ or heard much about it until I had to look up what was the deal with the line. Yeah, I'm out of touch, but I'm happy for those who love the shout out. Going back to Mecha Sonic's relationship with the Scrapniks, it eventually worked out, but only after Mecha Sonic went through some conflict both outside and in. Not only did Sonic and Mecha Sonic duke it out physically, they had a brief mental showdown, with the main crux being, what do you do if you cannot fulfill your original purpose? After getting his good programming kicked back online, Mecha believed himself to be a failure and both a destroyer and a protector, and was ready to end his existence. That is pretty dark. One motivational speech from Sonic, plus the mental link, helped show Mecha the error of his ways, and the two finally grab hands. This section right here reminds me of Toy Story 3. If you know, you know. I already said in issue 1 that the Scrapniks remind me of Sid's toys, so might as well throw one more nod to the movies. Back over to Sonic and Mecha locking hands. That's actually a nice touch. Sonic and Mecha were going for a friendly handshake back in issue 2, but it was interrupted thanks to a conflict that wound up with Mecha getting knocked back into evil. Now, after being knocked back towards good, the two finally lock hands. Once the conflict was over and the Eggman personality purged, the two have reached an understanding. I like the nice visual touch with Mecha Sonic's word bubbles, or rather his thought bubbles. How it's an orange color while he still had the Eggman programming, and once removed, it changed to white. signaling that his mind is free and clear of the Doctor's influence. Sonic himself must be thrilled because, for once, he succeeded in reforming one of his knockoffs, especially since Daniel revealed on Twitter that Scrapnik Island takes place between issues 56 and 57. Mecha Sonic serves as a nice counterpoint to both Metal Sonic and Surge the Teneric. Sonic gave all three a chance to go live their lives, when he believed they were no longer under their creator's thumb. Metal Sonic refused to change and went straight back to Eggman because he hated Sonic, and Eggman made sure he remained loyal to him. Surge was conditioned to take out Sonic and couldn't walk away to make her own path. Even if she had disposed of Sonic, her follow-up plan was to burn the world the Hedgehog cared for so much. I think what made Mecha Sonic's turn successful is, in addition to the reprogramming, Sonic actually took the chance to understand his adversary's pain. Once again, thanks to the mental link. This does beg the question, does Sonic and Mecha Sonic still share a link? I assume so, unless Tails was able to remove that along with the Eggman programming, and if they do, it's probably active when they're close to each other. It would be awkward if the two were able to still read each other's minds from hundreds of miles away. The creators went all in with the Sonic OVA nods, besides Knuckles' hat and recreating a situation where this time the robot doppelganger gets a happier ending. Natalie Fordrain made a promo image of issue 4 that is a nod to the cover art for the Sonic OVA's second part. It's actually pretty impressive. There's also a nod to another anime, Evangelion, with this panel right here of Sonic and Mecha staring directly at the Death Egg's remains. Natalie was kind to point out this nod on Twitter. There is one nod that I wouldn't have spotted right away had Daniel not tweeted about it. This panel right here when Mecha Sonic and Sonic were swapping minds is a shout out to the cover of Archie's Sonic Archives Volume 10. The set that contains issue 39, the one in which Sonic was transformed into a robot. And the name of this transformed Sonic? Mecha Sonic. Wow. First the Mecha Sonic vs. Mecha Knuckles fight from issue 2, and now this. It's almost as if they were fans of Archie Sonic's Mecha Madness arc. I don't blame them. It is a great story in both concept and visuals. Let's go through some random observations. Good to see Sigma and his assistants are fine. At the same time, it kinda lessens the tension from the last issue, how they were plucked off one by one and left to an uncertain fate, but then here, they are right as rain. And if you notice, Sigma returns with an old Eggmobile to help rescue Sonic and Mecha Sonic. Maybe Tails and or the Scrapniks found them and fixed them. They are machines after all. Perhaps Daniel wanted to leave what happened to them up to our imaginations. And people's imaginations can go all over the place. I bet you there are some people that would have preferred Sigma and his assistants get mangled to keep with the horror theme present throughout most of the miniseries and have some sort of downer ending with Sonic and Tails escaping, but at the cost of a civilization. Maybe even taking the Sunflower with them as a way to remember them. But I think having friendly robots getting wrecked would be too much for some people, and it would get in the way of the story's hopeful nature. Now that we've reached the end, some of the creators are sharing more of their contributions to the miniseries, i.e. the Scrapnik designs. Let's start with Minho Kim's remaining Scrapniks. We have Karina, whose head looks oddly similar to that of Cyril's. I definitely recognize the fireworm body, and the arms look like they come from Monkey Dude. Casper, who's using an Astron as a head. Dylan, who's using what appears to be a Penguinator as a head, and is that supposed to be a Nebula's propeller helmet? I could have sworn there was another enemy with a propeller on the top, but all I found was the Nebula Badnik. Next is Maximilian, who's clearly using an Orbinaut as a foundation for its design. Kinda looks like a magician thanks to the Orbinaut balls. Next up is Gilbert, whose head is a thunder spinner. And lastly is Bill. This one uses the lower half of a roller, the neck might be from a Monkey Dude's arm, the head is that of a Flyboy 767, and its tail could be the bottom part of a Spiny. And that's it for Min's contributions, as far as I know. Natalie Hines, another IDW Sonic artist, also contributed some Scrapnik designs. And as you can see, not only did she provide names, but pointed out which component Baddiks were used in their creation. Feel free to pause the video if you want to take a closer look at them. I will point out that the one using the egg pawn head does not appear on Scrapnik Island proper. I'm guessing the idea was they want to limit themselves to just the classic Batniks, the only exception being Gilbert, of course. Overall, I highly recommend the Scrapnik Island miniseries. While most of it has horror elements and atmosphere, it concludes with a sense of hope and optimism, which I'm all for. What's also great about this miniseries is that it can serve as an entry point to IDW Sonic in general. There is no connection to the overall narrative in the main books. It's a self-contained story that uses game assets in new and creative ways, and with the revelation of its overall place in the timeline, the miniseries, particularly its ending, is a much needed palate cleanser compared to the somber nature of issue 56's ending. Get all 4 issues if you haven't already, but if you prefer to read it in a graphic novel format, you'll have to wait until August. Should Daniel Barnes write more IDW Sonic in the future? Absolutely. I've said this before in my reviews, and I will keep saying it in the future. I'm always on board for new writers doing work for the series, as long as they communicate with one another. I hope Daniel does contribute more in the future, whether it be the main book, another self-contained miniseries. Credit should also go to Jack Lawrence and Natalie Fordrain for providing the miniseries atmosphere through the art. The door has been left open for the Scrapniks to return in the future. Perhaps one day, Belle the Tinkerer might visit this place. After all, she wants to free the Batniks from Eggman's control, and she would be excited to meet the Scrapniks who had done just that. I have a feeling she and Sigma would get along swell. And with Mecha Sonic actually surviving this story, the chances of him and Metal Sonic to actually meet face to face just went up. I could speculate all day, but I think it's time to wrap this up. Thank you for joining me throughout this surprising, yet great miniseries that helped expand the world of IDW Sonic. It could still be a coincidence, but given the miniseries takes place after issue 56, Sonic's previous leg injuries might not have completely healed, and the crash onto Scrapnik Island may have made the situation worse again. I don't care if you heal fast, Sonic, you need to stay off that leg for a bit. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 57 and the start of a brand new story arc, Urban Warfare. As always, this video will contain spoilers. You've been warned. Before we get to the issue, let me take a moment to talk about the primary setting for this arc, Eggperial City. Introduced during the Road to issue 50 saga, Eggperial City is Eggman's current base of operations. From what we know about it so far, it's hexagonal with 6 different colored sections, with a central tower for Eggman to do his thing. Within the city itself, there are relics of the Doctor's history, including his old mechs, escape vehicles, and of course, there are a bunch of Batniks. And that's just the surface level stuff. Who knows what surprises the city might have. Sonic's party was lucky to discover the city and escape when they could. Sonic himself believes as long as Eggperial City stands, Eggman has the ability to do massive damage to the world. Now's the time to do something about it. While the issue begins with some Eggperial City recon, there's actually a flashback to the mission briefing, so we'll start there. Sonic arrives at Restoration HQ where Tangle, Jewel, Whisper, and the sheep girl Lanolin are present. Jewel explains that while the Restoration's main goal is rebuilding and humanitarian aid, Lanolin made a case on how to expand into defending the people and the world from detectable threats, putting together a rapid response team made up of volunteers. The only ones who joined so far are herself, Tangle, and Whisper. Their first mission is to assess Eggman's new city base and hope to find a way to take it down. Sonic's here because of his previous visit to the city, and well, given it's Dr. Eggman in general, having his numero uno arch nemesis help the new Restoration team wouldn't hurt. As for the name of this new team, Tangle blurts out, the Diamond Cutters. Oh Tangle, you just had to reopen that wound. Too bad for Whisper, Lanolin likes the name, so that's what they are. As they prepare to move out, Sonic wonders if he's met Lanolin before. Lanolin reminds him that he stopped by her village to deal with a Batnik invasion way back in issue 2. Since then, she was inspired to do more, so she joined the Restoration, working directly with Jewel, and now she has assembled her own team. This brings us back to the beginning of the issue. Lanolin and Whisper see no signs of any defenses outside the city. This gives Sonic and Tangle the excuse to barge right in. They handle the Batniks no problem. However, they're fighting in front of a red-eye mini-boss, and it just came online. Lanolin summons her magenta rhythm wisp to disorient the machine long enough for Whisper to blast it. Lanolin chastises Sonic and Tangle for their reckless actions before turning her attention back towards the city. Using Whisper's hover wisp to gather aerial data, Lanolin compares it to the information Sonic's group provided last time and concludes that the city has gotten bigger. Sonic then decides to take his own aerial survey with the green wisp. Hover! Upon his return, he says the area where they crashed last time is not only repaired, it's as if the crash never happened, like the area healed itself. Lanolin figures if the city is growing and can heal like a living being, it'll need resources to fuel itself. With no known mining equipment, and Tangle mentioning the trees looking sickly, looking underground seems like the best bet. They head down a nearby elevator to the city's underground tunnels and deal with any badniks on their way to the lowest point. When they arrive, Whisper blasts a hole so Tangle and Lanolin can take a peek. What they find is nothing. The area has been hollowed out. It seems Eggman's new plan to take over the world is to let Eggperial City spread until it becomes the world. Sonic and Lanolin debate on whether they should do something now or gather additional help. There's actually a case for both ideas. Lanolin wants more forces due to Sonic having trouble the last time his party was here, and Sonic says any time spent gathering more help means the city will further expand. When Whisper suggests she stay behind to watch, Tangle shuts that idea down. The debate is interrupted by the arrival of drones generating a portal. One Sonic and Tangle recognize from Eggman's Freaky Tower in Test Run. Time to bail. The group find the elevator disabled and badniks along the vertical shaft. With the portal closing in, Sonic leads everyone up using the walls and badniks as stepping stones. It seems like they're going to make it. However, a zoomer badnik cheap shot Sonic, causing him to lose his grip on the girls. Into the portal they go. With more badniks entering the area, Sonic finds a hiding spot so that he can inform Jewel that he'll need reinforcements. And that's how the issue comes to an end. Alright, let's talk about the comic's Ascended Extra, Lanolin. An Ascended Extra, for those unaware, is when a background character gains more prominence as a series continues. A lot of times due to fans liking certain things about a character, and the creators catching notice. This definitely applies to Lanolin. As mentioned in the summary section, she made her debut in issue 2 as a random riverside villager that pleads to Sonic and Amy for help against the badniks. What stood out the most to people was her design. Heck, people were intrigued by her design when they saw her on one of issue 2's alternate covers. The creators definitely took notice, especially the artist for that issue, i.e. Lanolin's creator, Adam Bryce Thomas.
And Lanolin kind of crept up on me. Like, oh hey, there's some attention to this one cute background character that Adam drew once. Oh hey, she has a name. Oh hey, she's got a design now. Oh hey, she's the character.
Since then, whenever Adam worked on an issue, most of the time, he would sneak in Lanolin somewhere in the background. Kinda like a Where's Waldo situation. In fact, this really began in issue 13, the same issue the Restoration was first formed. She was among those that helped Amy with the paperwork. She kinda looked like a librarian there. Subsequent appearances have her dressed in a more militaristic style. It actually makes sense since she would see some action during the Megabeatman saga, being one of the few Restoration members not to get infected. Although, she got pretty close, courtesy of an infected Sonic sitting above her. You'd think she'd bring this up when reintroducing herself to Sonic, but that's probably a sore spot for both. Ever since Amy handed the keys to the Restoration over to Jewel, Lanolin's role has become more prominent. She was the one that escorted Belle to the machine shop, and she informed Jewel of the Chaot's arrival during the Zeddy incident, which brings us to today. I'm not surprised Lanolin came up with the idea of a rapid response fighting team. She's lived through the likes of badniks and zombots, so she knows the kind of threats Eggman's capable of producing. Plus, the Restoration needs more of a defense force after the pitiful display during the Zeddy attack. Game characters aren't always going to be around. Since this unit was her idea, naturally she would be the leader. So far, she seems to be one of those that need to get as much intel as possible before making a decision. I'm sure she'll get more comfortable as she gets used to her role as the leader of the new Diamond Cutters. And hey, like the old Diamond Cutters, she has her own wisp buddy that seems to reside in her bell. That bell has been with her since her debut. So did it always contain that magenta wisp? More than likely, she got the wisp when she joined the Restoration at some point, and the bell just happened to be a comfortable resting spot for it. Now I'm curious to see if the magenta wisp will actually be used with Whisper's Wispin. The opportunity is there. I'm still amazed that this random background character is being allowed to be an actual character. They could have created a completely new character all willy-nilly. Instead, they went with this direction. I'm guessing Sega loosened some restrictions regarding her because I distinctly remember her being on the cover of issue 30, but for some reason was removed in the final version. Odd considering her appearance on the aforementioned issue 2 alternate cover. I think the concern is, this character is tied to a certain artist, and Sega was worried that it might turn into another rights situation a la Ken Penders. That's just me speculating, I don't know what's actually going on behind the scenes. But hey, things seem to be changing because she appears on 2 alternate covers for this issue, and one of them's drawn by a different artist, Natalie Fordrain if you're wondering. That said, given this arc's interior line art will alternate between Adam and Thomas R., I think Lanolin falling into the portal with Tangle and Whisper is a convenient way to set her aside until we get to the next issue Adam worked on. Baby steps and all, though I will be happy if I'm proven wrong. One more thing about Lanolin is, well, her name. This arc would be the first time it would be officially used, and that includes solicitations and previews. Prior to the arc, her name was mentioned on various social media outlets by Adam and Ian. I wonder how many hoops they went through to make it stick. I assume she was named after the U.S. Acres character from Garfield and Friends. Speaking of names, this brings us to the long-tailed lemur in the room. I understand what Tangle was going for, naming their new team after Whisper's previous one just because the name sounds cool. Why do you think the issue's recap page has this panel from the Tangle and Whisper miniseries? However, this gained the ire of Whisper, and rightly so. Tangle, of all people, should know how bad Whisper emotionally suffered by the loss of her team. For crying out loud, she recently had a breakdown when she was this close to losing the Diamond Cutter Wisp to a power-hungry maniac. I don't blame her for giving Tangle the cold shoulder during the mission. Now you may think Tangle also wanted to honor the old Diamond Cutters by blurting out the name. That, and she's excited to see Whisper again in general. I would argue that it's Tangle's impulsive nature at work again, and like previous instances, she realized too late the consequences of her actions. Team Impulse. Now that's a name for a rapid response unit. Anyway, back on topic. Even Sonic showed more tact towards Whisper in this issue, and he's the guy that charges headfirst into an enemy city. To be fair, Sonic's always made sure Whisper is okay throughout the book. It's especially prevalent here given the recent Surge incident. By the way, totally called getting resolution for Whisper regarding the Wisp and her Wispin off panel. Though you gotta give credit to Belle for repairing the weapon, it's as if it never broke at all. Like Imperial City. It's clear that the tension between Tangle and Whisper will be a plot point for a while, with Whisper showing disdain towards Tangle, and Tangle getting tired of Whisper's solo act. I mean, the reason Tangle temporarily left the Restoration was to find Whisper, who herself left because of Mimic. Yeah, that plot point seems to be swept under the rug. Okay, it was established that Tangle and Jewel were going to keep in touch, and the incident with Surge probably made Whisper realize going back to the Restoration would be a good idea for the moment. You can kind of connect the dots from there. Maybe an annual or flashbacks will fill in some gaps because, as of right now, it feels a bit jarring. Going back to the Tangle and Whisper tension in this issue, either it'll probably work out as this arc goes along, or, given how the two plus Lanolin are separated from Sonic, in their own little side adventure parallel to urban warfare. We'll just have to see. Before moving on, I will say that while Tangle's actions may have readers give her the stink eye, there are still some likable things about her, like her face when she begs the Wisp to fuse with her, and then there's using her tail to roll down fast. Now that Tangle's been officially classified as a game character, makes you wonder if this will be a good gameplay mechanic. And I'm not joking about her being an official game character. Minor Sonic Frontier spoilers incoming.
I bet Tangle would love climbing around these ruins.
We found out one of Eggperial City's dark secrets. It's more or less a parasite feeding off the world and growing with the apparent goal of consuming the entire planet. This brings up some questions. The big one being, how has Eggman achieved this? I'm sure it'll be answered in the story. Otherwise, how else will the hero stop it? Still, Eggman's diving into another major world-dominating scheme using creepy methods. The previous attempt being the metal virus, and we all know how that turned out, and now appears to be a genius loci situation. Given that a test run portal was present, I have a theory that Eggman did experiments in that tower other than the freaky mismatched badniks, and that might be related to Eggperial City's development. Maybe it was those reality-altering environments. It would at least prove he salvaged something from the tower prior to its implosion. Let's move on to some lighthearted material. Always appreciate nods to the games, especially that of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And no, I will never stop gushing about that game whenever a nod to that one pops up. Though I did find it interesting that many of the badniks from the vertical shaft are from Sonic 2's Sky levels. To wrap this up, this was a decent start full of mystery and the potential for character conflict. At the same time, there are questions to be answered such as, what other things can Eggperial City do? Where did the new Diamond Cutters go? Can Tangle and Whisper work things out? And will Lanolin be allowed to appear in stories not penciled by Adam Bryce Thomas? Well, we just finished part 1 of a 5-part arc, so we'll have plenty of time for some answers. For the moment though, Sonic's in need of reinforcements, so come back next time as he'll get some much needed help in issue 58. See you then. It was at this moment she knew. She up. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 58, part 2 of Urban Warfare. I'm going to go ahead and place my spoiler warning here, because before I briefly recap what happened last time, I gotta do some cleanup / corrections regarding the previous issue. If you want to go straight to the review, you can skip to this time right here. First of all, people in the comments pointed this out, and I should have noticed it right away. Lanolin's scanning device is a modded version of a VMU. A VMU, or Virtual Memory Unit, is a memory card for the Sega Dreamcast. It can also be used for minigames separate from the console itself once you downloaded the appropriate software. For example, games that let you raise the stats of your Chow from the Sonic Adventure games. This is sad on my end. I was able to point out stuff like Sega's VR headset and the Sega Menacer in past reviews, and I was unable to recognize one of the Dreamcast's more well-known peripherals. I'm losing my touch. The second thing that was pointed out to me was this badnik. Originally I thought it was Ribbon from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Instead, it's the Gecko from Sonic 3 Advance. I looked it up to confirm this. Yeah, when I see a green amphibious badnik with stretchy appendages, my mind immediately goes to my favorite 2D Sonic game. But hey, it's from a Sonic 3. Finally, and this one's minor, I may concede to the point that the bell around Lanolin's neck is different from the one that she started out with. In-universe, it might have been replaced or modified into a Wispin to house her trusty Wisp companion, Maggie. Yes, that's what she's named her Magenta Wisp. This brings us to Lanolin herself and the recap of the last issue. Her new restoration team, along with Sonic, did some reconnaissance of Eggperial City and determined it was growing by sucking up all the nutrients from the surrounding lands. They were discovered, and as the four were about to escape, a random badnik caused Lanolin's team to fall into a portal that was chasing them. The name of this team, if you're wondering, is the Diamond Cutters, after Whisper's old team. You can thank Tangle for the name. Whisper, no doubt, was unhappy with that suggestion. Anyway, Sonic, now alone, had no choice but to call for help as untold numbers of badniks converge on his location. Sonic's probably having deja vu as he once again has to dodge badniks attacking him in Eggman's city. This time though, he doesn't have to do it alone for long. The reinforcements have arrived. Amy and Tails, along with Silver and Blaze. You might be asking, where did the latter two come from? The answers can be found within the pages of the 2022 annual. But if you want the short version, Blaze is here on vacation after she dealt with the last of the robotic pirates, and Silver's here because, despite the good future he got at the end of the Metal Virus saga, he's had this feeling that being in the present is where he's needed the most right now. Something I didn't catch when I reviewed that story was, the person Silver was having a heart-to-heart with, Espio, was his partner character in the game Sonic Rivals 2. A game that features a Save the Future plotline, I might add. Sonic fills in everyone regarding the city and the new Diamond Cutter's disappearance. Blaze and Silver rule out the Soul Emeralds and time travel as a means to rescue them, so they have to figure something out in the here and now. Luckily, that's why this guy's here. Tails figures the giant crystals all over the city have something to do with this whole thing, and the 5 of them head off to the nearest one. What they don't know is, the missing diamond cutters were actually next to them this whole time. They're just trapped in some out-of-phase dimension, unable to interact with the real world. Lanolin wallows in despair. She confesses that she's in way over her head when it comes to field work. She only put together this team out of desperation because she did not want to feel helpless again like she did back in issue 2. Tangle gives her a pep talk, citing her own mistakes in the past and how Jewel was there to help her through those times. Now that Lanolin has a team, they can work through this together, learn from their mistakes, and have a funny story for down the line. Maybe Tangle should have a pep talk with herself, because that's when Whisper confronts her on naming this team after her old one, knowing what happened to them. Lanolin gets a pass since she doesn't know the whole story. Tangle, finally realizing why Whisper's acting cold towards her last issue, breaks down. She saw how cool the old Diamond Cutters were, the camaraderie they shared, and wanted that for the new team so they wouldn't drift apart. This gets Whisper to think of all her recent actions, including leaving the Restoration and the people that have been taking care of her since her run-in with Surge. This also addresses something I've criticized in previous reviews, having some sort of resolution between her and her wisps, as we have a panel of her in a hospital room cradling her friends while Sonic leaves them be. Geez, Surge must have really messed her up for her to wind up in the medical ward. Whisper explains that while she tried walking away and being a solo act with her wisps, there have been those that have supported her recently. Sonic, Tails, Belle, and Tangle. She was keeping her distance because of the one person that hurt her in the past. She doesn't want to lose what she's gained since then to him again. However, she won't let that mimic cloud hang over her head any longer. She apologizes for being a bad friend and teammate and will try to move on, though it will take time. Even after suggesting changing the team's name, Whisper insists they keep it to Diamond Cutters as a way to honor her fallen comrades. Glad you guys worked things out. You're still stuck in an out-of-phase dimension though. As they discuss their next move, Lanolin figures if the heroes can't see them, neither can the badniks. Using this to their advantage, they will head towards the central tower to gather as much intel as possible. Once they return to normal, they can inform the others and get things done quickly. Well, that was some nice character building. Now back to our regularly scheduled fight already in progress. Sonic, Amy, Silver, and Blaze hold the line as Tails hacks into the giant crystal container. With the area secure for the moment, Tails reveals that the giant crystals are in fact fake Chaos Emeralds. Not as powerful as the real ones, but are more potent than Chaos Drives and Power Cores. Eggman created them to increase the city's power output, but it comes at the cost of the environment. Sonic sees an obvious solution. Let's smash them. What's the worst that can happen? It's not like smashing crystals can shatter the world into its own multiverse or something. Well, Tails explains the real reason why that would be a bad idea. Destroying just one crystal would destroy the city block and them along with it. Not to mention, the city would just suck up more land to heal itself. The crystals themselves are empowered by Eggman's control tower, so that's where they'll shut the whole thing down. They don't get far before witnessing an explosion in the distance. Sonic and Tails will check it out while the others head for the tower. So who are these new arrivals that's causing a lot of ruckus? Well, it's none other than Team Dark. A lot of the comic was focused on the new Diamond Cutters working through their issues. Let's start with Lanolin. She's one of those leaders that puts on a brave front for the team, only to fall apart when things go foobar. To be fair, many leaders need to put up a brave/commanding front for the sake of their team. But experience is also key to making things work, and Lanolin is a newbie when it comes to field work. It's obvious she was inspired to help when she witnessed Sonic and Amy in action in issue 2. I wouldn't be surprised if she based her leadership on Amy's, seeing how she organized the Riverside townsfolk into initiating a counterattack. Thing is, again, Amy's experienced, and Lanland's new at this. You can tell by the way she's taken the whole mission seriously. She even had this behavior before forming the team. In issue 37, when her role was starting to expand, she was acting more military-like because she thinks that's how things are run. That may have worked in the Resistance, but the Restoration's a bit different. After the team bonding, Lanland's starting to be more patient, listening to suggestions and acting accordingly, as opposed to her debating with Sonic on how to deal with Imperial City last issue. Next up is Tangle. We're reminded of her childlike demeanor, that she doesn't fully understand the consequences of her actions, especially the ones that make people uncomfortable, unless it gets explained to her. As much as you want to hate her, when she reveals why she went with the name Diamond Cutters, you kind of feel sorry for her. To her, Whisper's back in her life, and she doesn't want to lose her again. And she thought after seeing her old team in action, she wanted that closeness with her. What she should have done is at least talk to Whisper about naming the new team after her old one beforehand to see if she was comfortable with it. But again, childlike demeanor. At least she was sorry about it. I mean, look at her here, using her own tail as a security blanket. I'd give her a hug. She does have her moments like cheering people up with a pep talk, something we've seen before when she gave Sonic himself one in issue 24. Then we've got Whisper. Her recent behavior is also understandable when you recall her tragic backstory. She was still haunted by what Mimic did, betraying the others to be murdered by shadow androids. Since then, the two have played a game of cat and mouse until he was finally imprisoned. Whisper seems ready to move on, but the events of Bad Guys nullified that victory. So Whisper reverted back to her old ways because she's worried she would lose everything she's gained and the people she's befriended to him again. Remember how she behaved when she lost Tangle to the Mel virus? Or losing the Wisp to Surge? Yeah, I don't think she can handle another emotional moment like that. It was only after seeing Tangle break down that Whisper realized she's had a negative impact on those around her and resolves to not let Mimic live rent-free in her head anymore. A nice visual touch is Blue Cube, the wisp that belonged to Mimic, popped out to console Whisper during this. I should go ahead and quickly bring this up because I have a feeling someone in the comments will. It's no surprise that people have been shipping these two, and the comic staff seem to be on board with this. However, from what I've read, Sega's not a fan of romances in general when it comes to the Sonic franchise. I don't blame them given the mess over at Archie Sonic. Doesn't stop some creators from sneaking in nods to the ship. For instance, Thomas R., who penciled this issue, showed 2 panels of Tangle and Whisper wearing nearly identical headbands. In universe, it made sense for Tangle to wear one because it's a workout headband, and we've seen her with it when Whisper departed Restoration HQ. So why is Whisper wearing an identical one in the hospital? I thought at first it's a medical brace for the head, and it was probably supposed to be, but it's drawn exactly like Tangle's workout headband. Makes you wonder, did she buy one as a way to remember her friend? Whatever the case, the art team responsible knew what they were doing when it comes to connecting these two together. The team bonding moment in dire situations is a cliche in fiction, but it can be effective if done right. And the new Diamond Cutters, at least for me, succeeded on that front. Was the resolution a little too fast? Should have been spread out throughout the entire arc? After reading the issue over and over again for this review, I ultimately decided it's just about right. Besides, we need to get the team into a good place emotionally because after this issue, Ian Flynn will bow out, leaving Evan Stanley to finish the arc. Another secret of Imperial City is revealed, the fake Chaos Emerald power sources. That would explain why the city has multicolored sections, as previously seen. Shame Eggman only had 6 sections instead of 7 to represent the 7 emeralds. Perhaps meta-wise, it's a nod to how the first Sonic game only had 6 emeralds. That's my guess. As for the fake emeralds themselves, I would not be surprised if Eggman got the idea from Tails. Let me explain. In Sonic Adventure 2, Tails created a fake emerald that has the same wavelength and properties as a real one as part of a plan to sabotage the Ark's Eclipse cannon. But Eggman found out about it and tried to stop them. Eggman probably thought, that fox boy made a fake emerald? Well, I'll make my own, but bigger, and there'll be more of them. That'll show him. I don't have a problem with Silver and Blaze helping out. I'd figure since the 2022 annual showed them returning to Sonic's world, they would play a key role in a future Sonic arc, and here we are. Though I imagine if people hadn't read the 2022 annual, or at least saw a video about it, hint hint, they'd be confused to why these two are present. Well, that's comics for you. You have to read a spin-off or special in order to get the full picture. Also, I'd like to think that the annual stories took place during the lull period between issues 56 and 57 to explain why they didn't help out during the Surge incident. The issue overall was enjoyable, with character stuff for the comic origin characters, and plenty of action for the game origin characters. My favorite bit is when Amy decided to use an Egg Hammer's hammer, with some assistance from Silver, on that weapon's original owner. The preceding panels really sell it for me. Next time we'll find out why Team Dark is here, how can the new Diamond Cutters help out in their current state, and if the covers and solicitations are to be believed, witness the return of the Shadow Androids. Shadow and Whisper are not gonna like this. I'll see you in issue 59. This panel feels like an end of an episode frame. I challenge any animator out there to animate the Diamond Cutters moving out and ending with this specific panel. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 59. It has been a while, unless you've been watching my videos back to back. If you're new to this channel, welcome! Hope you like what you see, and please subscribe for future videos. I have some big things down the line. Anyway, back to this review. As always, I'll briefly recap what happened last time, and from this point forward, there will be spoilers. Previously on Urban Warfare, the new Diamond Cutters, consisting of Tangle the Lemur, Whisper the Wolf, and Lanolin the Sheep, fell into a portal and wound up in some out-of-phase dimension. There, they were able to work through their issues, and plan to help Sonic by gathering as much intel as possible while in their current state. Meanwhile, Sonic himself received reinforcements in the form of Tails, Amy, Silver, and Blaze. They discovered that Eggman City is powered by a number of fake Chaos Emeralds, and headed towards the central tower to deal with them. En route, they noticed a loud explosion, caused by the recently arrived Team Dark. Rouge greets Sonic and Tails while she, Shadow, and Omega are on top of a pile of Badnik parts. They're soon joined by Silver, Amy, and Blaze. Silver? Got an explanation why Blaze is upside down? Rouge explains she's not here to help the group. She brought along Edgy McHedgy and Destructobot to see what they can do about this place. And if she just happens to stumble upon treasure in Eggman's vault, that'd be a nice bonus for her. Team Dark leaves the others because they would only slow them down. Good job, Rouge. You just insulted Sonic. Don't let it get to you, dude. You got more important things to worry about, like Eggman greeting his visitors on the PA system. He brags about how his City of Tomorrow can self-repair and replicate, and that it's useless to wreck the building since more will take its place. Which would explain why he allowed the Badniks to tear down that building to get to Sonic last time he was here. Eggman then decides to unleash the Welcoming Committee in the form of Shadow Androids. The good old Doc is sitting in the tower enjoying the show, complete with popcorn. Unbeknownst to him, the new Diamond Cutters have entered his command center, still in their invisible out-of-phase state. Before they can look for anything useful, they witness the battle with the Shadow Androids. Seeing the very things that killed their own team, Whisper breaks down. Yeah, we all saw that coming. Tangle promises that history won't repeat itself. She's right, Whisper. The androids are fighting game characters this time, meaning they have Sega plot armor. This doesn't mean the fight won't be easy. Being based off Shadow and too numerous to handle, Sonic and his friends make a run for it. Their best shot for taking down the androids is to work with Team Dark. Shadow reaffirms that the android's strength lies with numbers, and they can be easily manipulated. Team Dark just needs to get to a better position to strike back. Sonic's group arrives to give them some breathing room. Most of them. Omega is soon swarmed and brought down. Oh, I hope we don't have to rebuild him again. With the androids advancing, Rouge tells Shadow it's time for Chaos Control. Though in his current state, he's not powerful enough to perform one without a Chaos Emerald. That's when Tails brings up the fake emeralds and how they're generating chaos energy. Shadow's not a fan of using pale substitutions, but what choice does he have at this point? He initiates Chaos Control and easily wrecks the androids. Unfortunately, Shadow tapping into the fake emerald's power had an unexpected side effect. Fake emeralds begin popping up, and Shadow can't handle that much power, and boom! The resulting explosion causes more fake emeralds to sprout, and the city's thrown into chaos. Pardon the pun. Eggman quickly regains control of the situation by activating the emergency limiter and rebooting the system. Outside, everyone witnesses the calm, regroups, and assures Rouge that Shadow and Omega will be fine. As Eggman finishes rebooting the system, the new Diamond Cutters discuss what they just witnessed. Lanolin speculates if they can cause a bigger power surge and prevent Eggman from throttling it, Eggperial City is history. Too bad for the team, the recent power kerfluffle has altered their states. While they're still out of phase, they are now visible and Eggman spots them. He figures out that they've stumbled upon his spatial displacement trap, an earlier model as he explains. So he whips out the more advanced versions to get rid of the intruders. Whisper is the first to be caught. Tangle is next. Or would have been if Lanolin had not moved her out of the way. Before being trapped herself, Lanolin tells Tangle to inform Sonic and crew about what they've learned. As the devices close in on Tangle, she discovers she can phase through the wall and bails from the tower, ending this issue. This is the first time we've seen Team Dark in any capacity since Chow Races and Badnik Bases, and the first time the full team is in action since the Metavirus Saga 2-parter, Crisis City. You know, the one where Shadow got infected due to his pride. We'll come back to that. Based on Rouge's dialogue, she and the boys are apparently here for their own reasons, which makes me wonder, did the group come here on their own, and it just happens to be when Sonic and his team were doing their thing? Given Rouge's profession, she would have found out about Eggperial City eventually, plus it would be pure coincidence, which can happen. On the other hand, she could have intercepted Sonic's SOS to the Restoration and assembled Team Dark to check out the place, and she's probably hiding that fact from Sonic. They did seem to arrive sometime after Tails and company did, and who knows how long until they showed up. Going back to Shadow, he still has his pride, but it seems it's been toned down a bit. You can see it most when Tails brought up the fake Emerald energy, and Shadow reluctantly using said energy to initiate Chaos Control. Would the Shadow of the Metavirus Saga act on useful intel that could help him? Well, you saw what happened there. To be fair, in the Metavirus aftermath, he admitted to Rouge that he done goofed. Perhaps after that humiliation, he's willing to be more receptive to any useful advice. I'm trying to justify his change in universe. Also, Shadow is a bit smarter, realizing that the Shadow androids have no real strategy and not rushing in head on to take them down. And when he does, he uses Chaos Control. Some might ask why he needed Chaos Emeralds, or something close, to do it when he could do it without one back in issue 6. Notice the dialogue here. He doesn't have enough energy to perform one without a Chaos Emerald. I take it as Shadow using everything he has to hold the androids at bay for the moment, and the added energy would be necessary to take them down. Compare that to him using Chaos Control to just zip past Sonic. It boils down to how much energy he needs in a given situation. As for why he doesn't say remove his inhibitor rings a la Sonic 06, this is me speculating, but I would say the writers asked Sega if they could write it in, but Sega said no. Shadow may be better off than he was in earlier issues, but he still has a ways to go in my opinion. Baby steps and all. The presence of the Shadow androids themselves. First of all, kudos to Tangle for recognizing them on the spot, since she got a POV view of them in action thanks to Whisper's mask. Second, everyone but Team Dark seemed unfamiliar with these machines. That actually tracks since it's only Team Dark that encountered these things in the past, specifically during the events of Sonic Heroes. Because they were stored similarly to Shadow, it made him question whether or not he was the real deal or not. Spoilers for Shadow the Hedgehog the game? He is, thanks to the canonical final story. Now that game also had Shadow androids, but thanks to its choose your path mechanic, who knows what elements are truly canon or not. As a nice visual touch, the Shadow androids have different colored markings, clearly an homage to the metallic shadows found in the Shadow the Hedgehog game's multiplayer. What is canon is using the fake emeralds to initiate Chaos Control, as previously mentioned. That's how Sonic got out of his death trap in Sonic Adventure 2. He was probably thinking of that moment right there. Shadow's act revealed a weakness to Eggperial City. It cannot handle massive power surges without Eggman regulating it, something the new Diamond Cutters learned, thus elevating their importance to the story. Once more, I have to praise Adam Bryce Thomas on the art. Combined with Evan Stanley's writing, we get moments like Sonic being annoyed by Team Dark's antics, Amy casually throwing Sonic aside to confront Rouge, Tango comforting Whisper during her breakdown, seriously let the girl breathe before you pile on more trauma, Eggman snacking while watching the carnage, and once again, the image of an upside down Blaze in Silver's aura. There are two highlights I want to point out. The first is this image of Metal Sonic. As Eggman gloats about how great the shadow androids are, you can tell Metal's not pleased that these knockoffs are going to destroy Sonic instead of him. I bet he was happy they were destroyed by Shadow. And then there's the way Eggman presents himself during his confrontation with the new Diamond Cutters. Yet another reminder that underneath that goofy exterior is a sinister and creepy madman. We've reached the halfway point, and things have gotten sour on the hero's end. Shadow and Omega are missing, and 2/3 of the new Diamond Cutters are incapacitated for the moment. But there is hope as Tangle escapes with information that could turn the tide. All she needs to do now is find Sonic's group. Can she make it in her current out-of-phase, yet visible state? We'll find out in issue 60. See ya then. Shout out to Natalie Haynes for actually painting what would become an alternate cover to this issue. According to her, she took inspiration from a number of classical paintings, like The Fallen Angel by Alexander Cabano, or is it Cabano? I can't pronounce these things. Anyone else want to see more covers like this? I do. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 60. Wow, 60 issues. You know, I remember when Archie Sonic reached issue 60. It was during the World Tour arc, and Sonic and Tails met a couple of new villains known as the Iron King and the Iron Queen. Sorry, I was drifting there for a bit. Before we begin, if you are new to the channel or a casual viewer and like to see more of this kind of material, please subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll be informed when new content is released. Alright, let's get to the recap, and there will be spoilers from this point forward. Previously on Urban Warfare, Team Dark joined the fray, and Eggman greeted his visitors with an army of shadow androids. They were too much for the heroes to handle, so the real Shadow had to tap into the fake Emerald's energy to deal with them. This had the unfortunate side effect of causing the fake Emeralds to grow in an out-of-control manner, with Shadow and Omega getting lost in the shuffle. Eggman initiated his safeguards to keep the city from overloading, something the new Diamond Cutters witnessed. Before they could figure out how to put this intel to use, the girls became visible to Eggman. Without wasting time, he launched new portal devices to trap Whisper and Lanolin, leaving only Tangle with the vital information Sonic's crew may need to win. Tangle lands safely from her tower escape, but Eggman's not letting a loose end get away that easily. Metal Sonic, along with some portal traps, are in hot pursuit. As Tangle goes around towards an alley with a dead end, Metal Sonic and the traps follow, and find nothing. After he leaves, Tangle pops up from the ground. She psychs herself up to deliver the information to Sonic's team, and decides to follow the burning wreckage in the distance. What she doesn't know is, Metal Sonic has faked his retreat. Back to our main group, Silver of all people is eager to head to the main tower to deal with Eggman. Everyone tells him not to rush things. If they're going to be successful, they're going to need every advantage they can get, including rescuing Shadow and Omega. Luckily, one possible advantage pops up, though Amy's reaction to Tangle's sudden appearance cost them the Miles Electric. Before Tangle can explain what she learned, the group's attacked by the portal traps. Blaze and Silver easily take care of them. This just leaves Metal Sonic. However, Amy's not in the mood right now, and collapses the area surrounding Metal, buying them some time. At least this time the destruction was intentional. Off-panel, Tangle fills everyone in on Eggman's safeguards, and the group decides to split off in two. Silver, Blaze, and Rouge head down to where they fought the Shadow androids to look for Shadow and Omega. Yeah, the place is a mess after Shadow used Chaos Control on the area. The good news, they found Omega, and he's intact. The bad news, the ground underneath them collapses. They wind up in Eggman's Mecha Museum, the same one we saw in Imposter Syndrome issue 4, where they conveniently find Shadow. Getting him free won't be easy because, first, there are still some surviving Shadow androids to contend with, and second, the fake Emerald's energy is too much for anyone to get close to safely. Silver tries using his powers to rip the crystals apart, but they regrow at a faster rate.
It's no use!
Blaze then lets Shadow know, in her own way, to not rush this, and to not give up. And indeed, Silver pushes on to try and free Shadow. Heading over to Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Tangle, they're heading up the control tower lift as they discuss the plan to shut down Eggman's safety protocols and rescue the remaining Diamond Cutters. They first have to deal with the returning Metal Sonic, who just cut the lift's rope. I assume it's supposed to be metal cables, but come on, it clearly looks like rope. Tails carries Sonic and Amy to safety, and to prevent Metal Sonic from locking onto Sonic, Tango covers his face with her tail, while gaining a free lift in the process. At the top of the tower, Eggman encourages Shadow to keep using Chaos Control. It'll just make more fake emeralds to power his expanding city. As long as the safeties are engaged, he has complete control. Well, things are about to become out of control when Team Sonic arrives. Amy subdues Eggman, allowing Tails to do his thing. Tango flees from an incoming portal trap, leaving Sonic and Metal to duke it out once again. Though this time it's pretty pathetic on Metal's end. Kinda reminds me of the end of the first Matrix when Neo easily blocks Agent Smith's punches. Time for Eggman to pull the old, if you want something done, do it yourself routine. Eggman dealing with Amy distracts Sonic long enough for Metal to sucker punch him. Tails manages to hold on long enough, using his namesakes on Eggman no less, to shut down the limiter. With the fake emeralds now growing uncontrollably, Eggman has no choice but to initiate Plan B, involving transforming the control tower into a tripod mech. And that's it for this issue. Being the penultimate issue of this arc, I feel like I should be excited for the climax, with the stakes seemingly being raised, and yet it feels a bit ho-hum overall. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I'll get into it more when I review issue 61. That said, there were some action pieces that I did like. The rescue group trying to fight off the shadow androids, which thankfully aren't a one-issue wonder, and the actions in the control tower, like Eggman whipping out his gun when things go foobar for him, and Tails using his tails to hold off Eggman long enough to do his thing. The issue's biggest strength, though, is the character dynamics. Evan Stanley and artist Thomas R. created a number of interesting moments as the group tried to take down the city. Rue showing concern for her missing teammates, Tango hyping herself up before tracking down Sonic, and this funny bit with Amy. When she explains to Silver about how cooler heads prevail in tough situations, she abandons that mentality the moment Tangle appeared. Also, it's a convenient way to limit the hero's ability to solve problems by having the Miles Electric destroyed. Sorry, Tails. Now speaking of Silver, there seems to be a lot of focus on him this issue. Not surprising since Evan Stanley considers him one of her favorite Sonic characters. What she's done with him is, I'm going to say the word again, interesting. Being all gung-ho when it comes to taking down Eggman, something that usually comes from Sonic. It does show how more experienced Sonic is, when even he knows when to slow down every once in a while, especially when it comes to fighting Eggman. Beginning of the story notwithstanding. To be fair, that was before Sonic knew what he was up against. Now this is a bit of a theory of mine, but I believe Silver's confident that they can achieve victory now is because he's seen a good future in the aftermath of the Megavirus arc. But as many of us know, when dealing with time travel, sometimes things aren't guaranteed to stay the same when one dabbles in the past. That said, Silver does get a moment to shine as he's the only one that can get close enough to try and free Shadow thanks to his powers, and to not give up thanks to some silent encouragement from Blaze. This is actually my favorite moment of the issue. Briefly going over the Eggperial City situation, what I will say is, Eggman did indeed have the situation under control until the heroes arrived. It's not a case of Eggman meddling with something that can backfire on its own, like trying to tame Eldritch Horrors and the like. This is a case where the heroes got lucky thanks to Tangle's intel. Now his city's on the verge of collapsing, and all he has left is the control tower. So what exactly is Plan B? We'll come back next time and we'll find out in the conclusion to Urban Warfare. And hopefully the heroes can also rescue Whisper and Lanolin from their traps. See you then. I bet when Amy was getting rid of Metal Sonic for a bit, she was probably remembering what happened in Sonic CD to fuel her rage. That's my headcanon, and I'm sticking to it. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 61, the final part of Urban Warfare. Before we begin, if you're new to this channel, I do videos regarding Sonic, Mega Man, and other video game related media. Usually covering stuff like comics, cartoons, which I need to get back to at some point, and even games. So if you're interested, please subscribe and hit that bell. Alright, time to recap what happened last time, and spoilers from this point forward. Tango managed to track down Sonic's group, and told them about how shutting down the failsafes would destroy the city. The group then split up. Rouge, Blaze, and Silver headed off to rescue Omega and Shadow, while dealing with the remaining Shadow androids. Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Tango went up to the tower to deal with the failsafes. Among the chaos involving Metal Sonic, portal traps, and Eggman's personal involvement, Tails deactivated the safeties. With the fake emeralds growing out of control, Eggman activated Plan B, transforming the central tower into a giant mech. Silver finally is able to reach Shadow, who tells him to get away. The energy building up is too much to handle. Silver is not going to give up, and tells Shadow not to as well. In fact, Silver pokes at Shadow's ego, pretty much saying, "You're gonna let some rock have control over the ultimate life form?" Needless to say, those words sprung Shadow into action, so good job, Silver. Back at the tower turned mech, which has 4 legs instead of the 3 like I originally thought, things get worse for our heroes on board. Hi there, future editor me here. As I was putting in the panels, I can confirm that the tower mech had 3 legs in issue 60 and 4 in this one. I'm afraid it's a consequence of having different artists work on a different issue in the same story arc. Things don't exactly line up, and it's not the only art inconsistency between these issues. I will point this out in the general thoughts section. However, I did find one panel in this issue that featured the tower mech having 3 legs, so it's possible it can also be a way of cutting corners, especially if the mech is in the background. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled review. Eggman successfully captures Sonic in a portal trap. Without him, Metal Sonic easily handles Tails and Amy. Tangle tries to help, but discovers she's fully solid again. Eggman gets the drop on her, and when Tangle raises her tail to punch his head, he has the perfect response pointed at hers. Yikes. It looks like this is it until Lanolin arrives, followed by Whisper using her hammer to knock Eggman away. Amy must be so proud right now. Tails figured with the city's computers offline, those caught in the portal traps would shift back to normal space. That means Sonic's imprisonment only lasted a minute or so. I'm okay with this because it was established in a previous issue that Eggman's power fluctuation almost shifted the new Diamond Cutters back into normal space. Our heroes bail from the tower, even Sonic after advocating weapon safety in his own way. At the same time, Shadow has created a column made up of fake emeralds, giving our characters a place to land. Eggman's not done with them yet, and neither is Metal Sonic. He hijacks a large turtleoid badnik to hunt the hedgehog down. This doesn't last as Omega and Blaze back up Sonic in getting rid of Metal Sonic, that is until their next future confrontation, and Rouge saves our hero. Eggman begins firing at the Emerald Tower, and with the emeralds now under his control, Shadow uses them to trap the tower mech. Sonic then has his friends give him a high enough boost so he can destroy the city using the tower. Eggman warns that without the city, there would be nothing to stop the incalculable destructive power of the fake emeralds. Sonic doesn't buy it, and one super fast homing attack later, the tower and the city is wrecked. Unfortunately, Eggman wasn't lying this time. The emeralds are building up some massive energy and are on the verge of exploding. Shadow tells Silver to get everyone out, while he summons one final Chaos Control. The others witness the emeralds disappear. Shadow pops up nearby, and as to where the fake emeralds went, the explosions in the sky should answer that question. Looks like pretty fireworks. Sometime later, everyone's having a nice picnic. Almost everyone. Shadow and Omega aren't present, makes sense for them. Yet, Lanolin isn't there either. Surely if the head of the Restoration is present, wouldn't the founder of the new Diamond Cutters be there as well? Even Belle the Tinkerer is present, and she doesn't even eat. She's just there to tell Tails how she fixed Whisper's Wispin. It involved chaos drives, by the way. As Amy brings out a delicious cake, she notices something in Rouge's possession that she took from Eggman's trophy room. That something looks like an Echidna statue keystone.
2 stone statues. The door to the past.
Amy offers to take it to Knuckles after Rouge flat out won't do it. Not even for another chance to splay all over the Master Emerald again? We end the issue and the story arc with everyone discovering Sonic has bailed once more, looking for new adventure. Come on, dude, stick around for some cake at least. As far as finales go, this one was better than I thought. Whether big or small, everyone played some role in the climax. There were those that assisted the bigger characters like Tails, Amy, Omega, Blaze, and Rouge. There's Silver daring Shadow to prove that he's the ultimate life form. The new Diamond Cutters saving the Tower Group while announcing who they are to Eggman, as well as Lanolin revealing that her Wispin Bell has a wand configuration. Metal Sonic was so desperate to deal with his organic counterpart that he hijacks a Badnik. Eggman once more shows us how dangerous he can get. Again, yikes. And finally, there's the two that ended Eggperial City once and for all. Of course, Sonic would be the one to wreck the place by wrecking the giant mech, and it's all because of his friends giving him the height and momentum. Shadow has his moment when he took control of the fake emeralds and got rid of them when they were about to explode. Definitely the MVP of the arc. No, seriously, without Shadow's presence, things could have gone badly at different points, whether it be getting swarmed by shadow androids, or the fake emeralds going boom on the surface of the planet. You could argue that Sonic could have used Chaos Control if he wanted to. He has done so in the games. But I believe Evan Stanley didn't want him to steal Shadow's thunder in this story. When it comes down to it, Urban Warfare goes out of the way to show that both Sonic and Lanolin were right. Sonic wanted to take care of Eggperial City ASAP, or else it would have sucked away all the nutrients from the planet until nothing but the city was left. And Lanolin's correct in that they needed more people working together to accomplish this. Even Sonic recognized this to himself as the arc went on. Eggperial City's demise. I have some mixed thoughts on this. On the one hand, I would have liked the place to stick around for a while. Have Eggman hang out in a central location for a bit, and conduct some low-level schemes from there. Of course, this would bring up the SatAM/pre-reboot Archie comparison with Robotnik and Robotropolis. You can even argue that the beginning of this arc is a nod to that time, as it featured a team with Sonic infiltrating the main villain's city, led by a serious individual with a handheld computer. I wonder if the writers intended to start with this homage before it turned into an open warfare situation that led to the city's destruction. Anyway, even though the city existed since at least issue 49, I felt it could have stuck around for at least one more arc before destroying it. But on the other hand, I get why it had to go. This is a more game-centric universe, and Eggman loses things to Sonic all the time, only for the Doctor to bounce back with another big scheme. And Eggperial City is, in the end, another scheme. One that needed to be dealt with as soon as possible, lest it become a worldwide problem a la the Metal Virus. And I don't think the people, both in and out of universe, can go through that again. Overall, Urban Warfare is a slightly above average affair, elevated by the character interactions, along with some winks and nods, the establishment of a new group that successfully disrupted Eggman's plans like they said they would, building off a concept established in one of the games, and Shadow's character seems to be healing somewhat. As always, I've enjoyed the art, though there is one thing I have to point out with regards to the coloring of the fake emeralds. I don't have a problem with them having multiple colors like the real emeralds. My issue is, the one holding Shadow at bay was yellow last time, and now green here. I then glanced at the colorist credits for both issues, and it suddenly made sense. I wonder if this will get addressed when the arc is printed in a trade down the line. With Eggman out of the way for the moment, it's time for our heroes to go out and have some smaller adventures. One of them is actually being set up at the end of this very issue, with Amy planning to give the keystone to Knuckles. Guess where she's going next issue? It'll also kick off the return of a minor villain who wants payback against a member of his former team. And with that, I'll see you in issue 62. Seriously, Sonic, you could have at least taken a slice of cake with you as you ditch your friends once again. And so that's it for this compilation. Some additional final thoughts. Those hidden mysteries on Angel Island? I would not be surprised if, in hindsight, this was in some way related to Sonic Frontiers. If you know, you know. When Blaze started her extended vacation in the 2022 annual, who knew that would still be a thing years later? not to mention the event being brought up in actual console games, or at least promo material setting up the games. Case in point.
Hey, what's royalty like her doing slumming it in the races with us?
She's tight with Sonic and his crew. Plus, I hear she's on vacation.
Then again, it makes sense given that the writers of the comics are involved in the actual games these days. I still think to this day Scrapnik Island is my favorite story arc of the comic for the reasons I stated in my original reviews. I would also like to point you in the direction of the fan comic based on this miniseries, Scrapnik Island Mechanization. Basically, what if Mecha Sonic succeeded in swapping minds with Sonic, and the immediate consequences that followed. As of this video, it's not quite done, unless you're seeing this in the future where it is finished. Either way, check it out. Finally, after seeing the Neo Diamond Cutters in Urban Warfare, it is a shame about what happened to them in future issues. With that, thank you for watching this long video, and have a good day.